Okay, we're live on YouTube. Mr. Supervisor, the meeting is yours. Let me know if there's anything you need.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular board meeting of May 18th, 2021. This is an electronic meeting. Note this meeting will be held electronically as authorized under the Open Meetings Act, Public Act of 267 and 1976 as amended. Members of the public body and members of the public may participate electronically as indicated throughout the township, our website, and various locations. With that, I will call the meeting to order, and I'd like us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Excuse me, Mr. Roll Call. Okay. Yeah, well, you must be Mr. Roll Call at times. Mr. Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Supervisor Kowal.
Here.
Clerk Noble, White Lake, Michigan.
Oh, we're Supervisor Cole, White Lake, Michigan. Thank you, Mr. Noble.
Treasurer Roman.
I am here, White Lake, Michigan.
Trustee Ruggles.
Here, White Lake, Michigan.
Trustee Smith.
Here, White Lake.
Trustee Voorhees.
Present, White Lake Township.
And Trustee Powell.
Here, White Lake Township, Michigan.
Okay, before we get started tonight, there is something that I've been requested to bring to the board and the public's attention. And this is by Oakland County Commissioner Eileen Kowal and the library and Oakland County Health. There will be a COVID-19 vaccine clinic at the White Lake Township Library on May 26th and June 16th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the appointments are booked, but walk-ins are welcome. So everybody remember those dates, May 26th and June 16th. That is very important. So we'll bring that to the attention of the public. Thank you. I'm looking to make an amendment.
Hey, Rick,
Yes, sir.
real quick, do you know which vaccine they're going to have, or did they not disclose that?
I have a note that says Pfizer.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think people are going to want to know that, so thanks for adding it.
it's Pfizer.
I do have a note that says that. I am looking to make 2 additions to the agenda. We'll add 2 items to the agenda this evening. First item will be item I, which will be the WODA information that came forward to the board members that we just received recently, and item J, which will be the reconsideration of the Partners on Patrol with SOT Automotive. I'm making that as a motion, looking for support.
Supervisor,
Yes.
motion to reconsideration. I'm now being technical parliamentarian here. Motion to reconsider has to be at the same meeting that the motion was made. If you're trying to rescind an action that was taken at a previous meeting, it would be a motion to rescind. If notice was provided prior to the rescission, then only a majority vote is required. But if notice was not provided, you need a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
But anyone can make it.
Lisa,
It
I
doesn't
would
have.
also appreciate those motions to be separate. So agenda item I separate from J, please.
Well, they would be separate. They're just additional items to the agenda.
Yeah, 2 different votes, she means.
One of them is WODA and the other one is the reconsideration of the Partners on Patrol. Okay.
Separate votes, please.
It would be. Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. Council, what's your addressing that, as we've not done this before in the past?
So you can make a motion to add something to the agenda. But your motion that you called rescission really should be, you called reconsideration. It's really a rescission of a previous decision. And then you could reconsider something if you provided notice to the board in advance of adding something to the agenda, then only a majority vote of the board is required to add it to the agenda.
Okay,
If
this
notice
came-
wasn't provided, then a 2/3 vote is required.
It came in at the last minute. Okay, so I wanted to move it forward. I was not aware of that particular parliamentary procedure. Thank you, as always, for your efficiency. First of all, adding Adam I, which would be the WOTA issue. That would be the one thing that I would like to add. I would like a motion of those in favor of adding item I for the WOTA. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
yes,
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Okay, the next item will be item J, which would be the rescission of a earlier decision for the partners on patrol with Azat Automotive. I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Ruggles,
I had a question. Do you need a motion first?
I believe that we will need a motion to move that forward. And I would say if we move it forward, it'll either go up or it'll go down. So I would make the motion to go forward, then we can make a decision from there.
Lisa, can anybody make the motion?
Any of the board members, yes.
And a motion to rescind, yes.
And that motion needs support.
That
And then a
motion-
roll call vote,
That motion will need support and then a roll call vote.
because we didn't have support adding I technically.
I beg your pardon. I thought we did.
Let's back up. I'll support that motion of I. So we can backtrack and everything will remain the same.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Okay. And everything else will remain the same. It's still passed. Okay. Going on to J, again, rescission of the decision and reconsideration. Looking for a motion.
For discussion, I'll move for reconsideration of that motion.
I have a move to reconsider, looking for support. I will support.
I'll support it.
Okay, I have support. Mr. Noble supports. I will say roll call. Yes, Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I would like to know who requested to place it on the agenda.
I did, Mr. Noble and Mr. Powell.
There was no notice given to the board.
We just had this discussion this afternoon.
That gave you a couple hours to give notice.
Well, it came up right now and I was unaware of the parliamentary procedure. So now we're discussing it and following procedure. Moving on, Mr. Roman.
Can I make a statement, Rick? Would now be a proper time?
I would say
We're under
that we need-
discussion.
no, because it needs to be.
Oh,
added
we
to
are
the-
under discussion, Mike?
Yeah, we motioned and seconded it, Rick.
We motioned it, we seconded it. The idea was to hopefully get it on the agenda and then at that time have discussion.
So we need a roll call vote to have it on the agenda first or
Correct,
not.
correct. Mr. Ruggles,
Didn't we just voted on this days ago, correct?
correct.
And it's such an important issue that this board is going to reconsider our vote in a week's time.
I believe that there was some thoughts of that there was talked about, yes.
Well, we're not
So-
going to
so-
reconsider our vote unless it's added on on the agenda.
Well, that's why we're
So-
talking about adding it onto the agenda or not. And if it is added to the agenda, we will discuss it. If it is not, it will be withdrawn.
So at any point in time, if something gets voted down and one more board member is unhappy with it, we can just keep putting it back on agendas to be reconsidered.
Counselor?
Usually if it's based on changed circumstances
Is there a
or
changed circumstance?
people feel that proper discussion wasn't had or enough discussion was had.
Did a circumstance change I'm unaware of?
I believe there wasn't enough discussion.
Not enough discussion.
Correct.
I believe there was enough.
Nobody limited the time and we had a proper roll call vote.
I just still think there wasn't a full discussion on it.
Then correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor, that would have been the appropriate time to bring it up in that meeting.
Technically, if a member feels there wasn't proper discussion on it, he could request a motion to rescind the previous decision But again, without notice, it does require a 2/3 vote.
Everyone here had enough information to vote. Did they not?
I didn't have enough information, Scott.
Aren't you a
No,
police officer or
That's
retired?
why. Yes, I am. And I
You
didn't
don't have enough information about police cars.
Not that night, I didn't. Now, when I
Okay.
dealt with that, and we'll get into it when the discussion, I'll say my point about it.
Question for Counselor. So Lisa, right now, we're just voting to add it to the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then once the item comes up later on, that would be the time to follow the parliamentary procedure, would be the time to make your comments. And
So it's two parts, right? First, you have to add it on the agenda. We've gotten through that. Once it's added on the agenda, then it's a regular agenda item, like it never happened, and you have your discussion and you vote, majority vote.
okay, but I thought you said if it's voted on later in the meeting, there has to be a motion to rescind at that point in time, and that would require a 2/3 vote?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
we haven't
assuming,
voted yet to put it on the agenda, correct?
that's correct. You've not voted to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll support that. Yeah, I'm fine putting it on the agenda. So I don't know. Did you say there was already a motion in support?
Mhm. I will be voting no to not place it on our agenda.
Oh, we'll take a roll
which
call vote momentarily.
Then there is no discussion and there's no chance for reconsideration.
Okay, so we have motion. We had, who supported? Mr. Noble supported.
Right.
And excuse me, that is correct. Mr. Noble supported. And with that being said, roll call vote, Mr. Noble?
Trustee Smith.
No,
Trustee Smith, okay. Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
No.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
No.
Do the math on that one. We had
I
two
think
no's. Beg your pardon?
I think you added it on the agenda.
Yes, we did.
That's
I
all it
think
did.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. So that being said, the agenda is approved. Moving on to item number 5, which is public comment. At this particular time, if there's anyone in the public that has anything that they would like to say, whether it's on or off the agenda, due to the Zoom media that we are using, please raise your hand. Rob, I will let you take that over.
Members of the public, if you'd like to address the board, press star 9 on your telephone to raise your hand. Press star 9 to raise your hand for public comment. We'll give it a moment here to see if anybody raises their hand. Again, members of the public, press star 9 on your telephone to raise your hand if you'd like to address the board. We'll give it just another moment.
Okay, seeing as we are not having any response, I will close public comment and we'll move on to item 6, consent agenda. Mr. Clerk, you like to make a motion for consent agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Now you broke up, Rick, our Supervisor Cole. I'll make a motion for the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve consent agenda. Looking for support, please. I have support from Mike Roman. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
yes,
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Now that we have passed the consent agenda, I will point out something a little humorous, because we could use a little humor and levity tonight. I was told, it was pointed out to me that I am going to be the supervisor that closed Lover's Lane. So I just thought I would let you know that. It is
Lover's Lane.
Lover's Lane. That is the road that's under the consent agenda for abandonment by the Road Commission of Oakland County. It is a small road about 50 feet long, but it was pointed out to me, and I thought it was rather humorous. So I thought I'd share that. Okay, item 7, minutes, the approval of the minutes. I would like to combine the two of them, the minutes of the special board meeting of April 15th and the regular board meeting of April 20th. I'm looking for a motion to approve and or amend. Mr. Powell,
Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of April 15th, 2021, and approval of the regular board minutes of April 20th, 2021, as submitted.
thank you. We have a motion looking for support.
I'll support.
Support from Clerk Noble. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees. Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
and Supervisor Kowal.
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, we have item 8A, which is the dangerous buildings appeal for 9910. Do we have the parties that are involved in that on the line? Beg your pardon for a moment. Paperwork seems to have misplaced itself. Is Mr. Stephen Hutch available in the crowd? You need to raise your hand on the phone.
That would be by pressing *9 on your telephone if you're one of the phone callers.
Mr. Hutch, are you there? Hello, Mr. Hutch? I believe you're muted.
There we go. Yep.
Okay,
Go
we're here
ahead.
on, yeah. Hello,
Mr. Hutch, are you there?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I believe we can all hear you.
Okay.
It is our understanding that you are trying to seek relief from the Township Board for the demolition order for 9910 Highland Road, a building of which had a structural fire back in September of 2016. So that's putting that at quite some time ago. And it's gone through and has gone through the dangerous building hearing, I believe twice now, and was recommended to be torn down by our building official. And you have asked that, excuse me, and that decision was supposed to have been solid and was supposed to have been executed by you by June 1st of this year. And you have chosen to come to the board to seek potential relief.
Correct.
What is your plan for this particular building, as nothing has happened to it in the last almost 6 years?
Ask them if they got the paperwork yesterday. Yes, did you receive our paperwork that we sent yesterday?
We did receive a document from Lopez Engineering, yes.
Did you also receive the other 3 documents?
There is a package that was contiguous. It would have been the report. It would also showed the insurance settlement, some additional funding, and the Robbins built company that has a projected scope of work.
Yes, okay, we're glad that you have those. I'm Steve's brother, Michael. I'm also on the list.
Okay,
but we figured we'd use one phone so that we wouldn't get an echo since we're in the same room.
understandable. You care to state your case?
Yeah, let Steve speak first. Well, actually, I can fill in. Back in 2016, the fire took place, I believe, September 29th, 28th, 29th, around midnight. On October 4th, just a matter of a few days later, Steve and I were in a car, stopped waiting for a school bus. We got hit from behind. So that caused medical issues over the next 2 years with doctor appointments, et cetera. So he had the fire to deal with and the accident. Chase Bank had money in escrow since 2017 to do the work. The only problem was they needed half the work done to get half the money. And the property, even though at the time homes were selling for $100 a square foot with their land, with their garages, et cetera, you would think that the land being 25 or 30% of the cost, that 150,000 coverage for a 1,500 square foot house would have been adequate. But my brother quickly learned that he was underinsured on the home. Besides that, builders weren't willing. He didn't have extra money to pay a builder besides the cost that would be involved for everything. So he had to figure out a way to get the money together. Fortunately, recently, Chase Bank is allowing draws of 25% instead of 50% against the money that they hold. In January, I brought it to the building department's attention that we had the money to move forward. I even shared this with one of the trustees and provided proof prior to our meeting in February regarding the dangerous building status. Since that meeting, we've had Lopez go out again to assure the building department that the house is not in a severely deteriorated state that it's going to collapse or has to be torn down. The tear down of that house would cause considerable expense, considering that Steve also has an obligation to Chase Bank for $300,000 on a mortgage, and to preserve their interest. During this whole time, the adversity that he's faced, my brothers have to maintain obligation on the mortgage of $300,000 plus his current living arrangements. So he's had to take care of 2 households, plus deal with everything else. I was taking care of our father last year because his health was deteriorating, 88, 89 years old, and he passed away just a couple days after Christmas. Even though the family suffered a loss, it freed up my time so I could help my brother. And I let the building department know that I put together the money that Steve needs to be able to start work. That's been the problem. It's been financial. He has not wanted to carry 2 households all these years. And then last year, I was in a position on track for raising the money a year earlier, but then COVID hit. And all my plans went to a screeching halt. And I figured out another way. So we are in a position to be able to move forward. The structural engineer visited here in the last week or so and shows that certain parts of the house, the materials have to be removed, but the house is sound enough that it can be rebuilt. I think you'll see that towards the last half or the last third of the report. What else can I add? Anyways, have I left anything out?
How much money have you raised?
Well, I provided the proof with the Birmingham Bloomfield Credit Union. We've got 48,000 sitting in the account right now. We need 34,000 to get to the first draw. And then once that draw comes in, we'll have that 34,000 to spend towards the second draw. So we've got a cushion.
I mean, in total, how much money will you have?
135.749, I think, in escrow. Yeah, with Chase Bank. The problem with Chase Bank is that
initially they were supposed to release $40,000 for me to move forward. They only released $20,000 and created a major problem on moving forward. And so to get to the halfway point, the 20,000 wouldn't have covered that. It would have got me a lot closer. But you know, due to the COVID, I was in a position to get a loan for $50,000, and since COVID hit, they seized that area of releasing money for loans. So now we're in a position to move forward, and we hope that you will take everything into consideration to move forward and approve our request.
Okay, is that the end of your comments there, Michael?
Yes, I believe I covered the basics. I might have to interject with something else if it comes up, but I think we've given you a pretty good picture of where we stand.
Okay, yeah, we will entertain that. So, okay, any questions from the board members at this time? Trustee Smith.
May we hear from Mr. Spencer on this issue, please?
Mr.
I believe.
Sure.
I intended on bringing him up at a certain point. I had asked him to attend this evening so he could disclose his information.
Great, thank you.
But are there any questions for the homeowner at this time?
Sir, I have one comment.
Yes,
That
sir.
with there's possibility of cost overruns also on any type of building project. And there is some money in my dad's estate, which Steve will be receiving down the road. So besides the cushion that we have in workable funds now, there's additional monies that could cover any cost overruns in certain areas. So, and then there's some properties up north that could be sold too. But for the most part, the amount of capital that we think we might need as an extra, just as a cushion, that will be forthcoming to Steve's account in a matter of the next few months. So that's extra on top of everything we're working with right now.
Thank you. Again, any questions from the board members? Mr. Powell? Oh, you're muted, Michael.
Apologize. Yes, I'm just wondering if I could ask the owners, 6 years is a very, very long time, and you certainly had you've shared some problems that you've had. Unfortunately, the neighbors have had to live with your lack of progress on repairs to this home. My personal opinion is that this is a beautiful lot. My understanding, it might even be 2 lots there on the lake, and there would be a substantial, maybe a financial benefit to you and your family to have the lots worth more without the existing structure on it than with the structure on it. And so I'm just, the lack of progress so far really makes me question the ability to complete it within a logical time frame to where you're not imposing even a bigger burden on your neighbors. I'm not a builder, but the report from builders are saying that lumber has virtually doubled, tripled, even quadrupled in some cases now, which means the amount of money that you had available 6 years ago won't even come close to finishing it now. And so
It's been 4.5 years, Michael.
Yes.
2016, in September of this year, it'll be 5 years. So
Okay,
when we were entertaining the dangerous building meeting, it was mentioned as 5, but it was really 4.5 at that point.
Okay, I apologize. I stand corrected, absolutely. So whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years, your neighbors have had to live with that structure incomplete for that length of time. And I don't believe if the house was taken down, you'd be financially burdened because the lots would be worth a great deal without that structure on it. So that's just kind of where I'm heading.
Any other questions for the homeowners at this time? Okay, at this time, I will ask our inspector, Nick Spencer, to come forth with his comments on this particular parcel of property. Nick?
Sure. So, as you mentioned earlier, this property has been sitting this way for 5 years. Sorry, 4 years and 4.5 years, let's say. We do get calls about this property on a regular basis. Jason Hudson, our code enforcement officer, has also dealt with a lot of junk and debris at the property. They have cleaned a lot of that up over the past 6 months. But the structure itself is still an issue. I know that they've gotten some reports from the engineer. I have not seen the updated reports. I did see the report from a year and a half ago. And that's one of the reasons that we allowed the building permit at that time. My biggest concern is, are we going to be back here in another year or 2 years and the progress has not been made? As Mr. Powell alluded to, the cost to build is substantially higher. A house that was $300,000 to build a year ago, even 6 months ago, is now a $400,000 home. So I do have some concerns in that regard.
Okay, and I noticed in the inspection it called that the entire roof would have to be completely removed from the house, that the subfloor was extremely damaged, and that there's severe structural damage as a result of hydrostatic pressure in conjunction with frost heave at the garage. So you're talking about, that's the foundation. So between the roof, the floor, and the foundation, and going backwards, I'm not quite sure how you're going to be able to actually pull this off, pull this together with the amount of monies that you have. That's a concern to myself and also to this board. And the fact that it is indeed, is my understanding of it is, Nick, it is 2 lots, correct?
That is correct.
So it is 2 lakefront lots. It may be in your best interest to pull back, regroup, demolish the house, potentially build a new smaller house on one of the 2 lots. I mean, I'm not telling you your business, but you may want to take a serious look at that as part of your plan, and that way you could potentially recover a considerable amount of your costs, because lakefront property, as we know, is not going down in value. So I know it's a concern. Lisa, you have your hand up.
I just want to make a comment, if it's okay, Supervisor Cowell. I've been working with Mr. Hutch. Jason Hudson issued him a citation for junk and debris outside of the property. And the way we've been handling that is he comes to court, and Jason and I tell him what he needs to do before the next court date. And if he does those actions and cleans that up, then at the next court date, we're adjourning it another 30 days. We have been working with Mr. Hutch, and he has been complying. I have not seen any of the material. I'm not talking about the existence of any dangerous building. I'm simply relaying that he has made significant progress to the exterior of the property. And I think by the next court date, he's going to have complied with all of Jason's requests for the external portion, and his case will be dismissed. Just a little bit of information just for your benefit.
Okay, thank you. He's been trying to comply, in other words, correct, Michael? Are you there, Michael?
Yeah. Oh, okay. There's Michael Powell and there's Michael Hutchinovich.
I beg your pardon. Too many mics here. Okay. Mr. Hutch.
That's right. Yes, Steve has been, he's got all the vehicles. There may be one left. No, they're all gone. There's a couple small piles that have to be dealt with, but 95% of, I mean, there was quite a few things that were removed, and Steve has been compliant. But your comments that you just made a couple minutes ago, the hydrostatic pressure back, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, there was 60, the frost line.
Let me comment on that. Yeah, the lower structure on Cranberry Lake, someone put a dam in on the west side of the lake, which elevated the water level, submerged my dock underwater. I've been at that property for many years, and my friends owned it before I did. And when I was a kid, the dock was always had 8 to 10 inches of water underneath it. And since they dammed up the lake, it has risen the water table on my property. I'm the lowest lot on the property. And the year that we had 60 inches of frost plus, it heaved the east side of the lower garage, the foundation, about 6 inches on both of the corners and cracked the slab. So my understanding is we can jack up the roof, cut the slab halfway back, and restructure the foundation about, I think it's about 12 or 15 feet, and put the concrete in and set the building back on that foundation. So that's...
Yeah, there's been no compromise on the house as far as the foundation. If there was severe compromise, there'd be huge cracks in the brick, and that house is surrounded by brick.
Yeah, the foundation is fairly deep, and it's not only one layer brick, but it's got double brick on it. So the wall structure is more solid than a normal brick home.
Okay.
It's got structural brick on it.
Okay, Mr. Spencer, do you have any comment on that?
The structural engineer did point out that there was a structural brick on the exterior of that home. That's a small portion of the build. I mean, we're talking all the floors, all the joists throughout. As he just mentioned, a substantial amount of foundation work that needs to be done, full roof that needs to be, I mean, trusses and everything that's going to have to be removed and rebuilt. We're talking almost a full rebuild on this home, besides the foundation.
Not the foundation from the house to the upper garage is solid.
Well,
Right.
okay, excuse me. Let me interject right there, Stephen. We can go back and forth on that all day long because it's going to have to meet I believe the 2015 code, irregardless of what is done. Is that correct, Nick?
That's correct. Any build of this substantial amount would require to meet current 2015 building code.
Yeah, the floor joists, the subfloor has to be ripped out. The exterior furring strips have to be, and the interior walls have to be, and also the windows have to be brought up to code in the bedrooms. But other than that house is pretty solid. And he's going to come back out, the structural engineer, and check the joists. But according to the span between, there's a wall halfway that runs length of the house that in the crawl space where the Floyd joists meet. And at this point, I don't believe, I believe the floor joist is going to pass.
The fire was only in the living room and it spread in a little bit, well, it destroyed the kitchen, the cabinets and stuff, but it was pretty much smoke damage throughout the rest of the house. But the entire roof over the house and the two-car garage to the east will be all replaced.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions to ask you, and perhaps I'm not sure if you can answer these. I don't have this information. Perhaps you or maybe Mr. Spencer knows. How many square feet is that house?
1520.
1520.
1520. And you're looking at right now, you're going to have a demolition cost of a certain amount of money and disassembly cost, which is going to make it more costly to do. And then you're going to be going forward. Renovating is always more costly. So you're probably looking realistically at about, I think I'm going to be generous, okay, and say $285 a square foot. And I think I'm being conservative at that, okay? That means you need $433,000 to complete this project, okay?
Yeah, yeah, there'd be on demo work. How much are you coming up with on the demo work?
I'm just using a low average, I believe, out there in the marketplace right now because of the extraordinary circumstances. You know, what concerns me is that you may be throwing good money after bad. I mean, I'm not going to tell you your business plan or what you're going to do, but you do have 2 lots, and I just don't see how you're going to be able to bring this back. And I share the same concern that Mr. Spencer does, that we'll be back here in a year or a year and a half, and it'll be halfway done or 3/4 of the way done, and it'll be the same problem. This is going to be a problematic situation. Mr. Roman.
I just want to mirror the same comments that Supervisor Colwell did. You're looking at probably more than $285 per square foot. I think you'd be better off tearing it down, and you got 2 lots. So same comments as Rick.
There's no way $285 a square foot.
Well, you're right. I said it's probably more than that.
Yeah, Mr. Hutch, at this time, the board is going to ask questions amongst itself. So I'd ask you to refrain at just at this moment, okay, if you don't mind.
All right.
Andrea Voorhees.
I asked one question or a couple questions of Mr. Hutch.
Go ahead.
Well, if we were to talk to your neighbors, what would your neighbors say? Would they be okay with living next to that? And would you be okay living next to that?
Yeah, both neighbors, they both are interested in buying the house. So they both approached me on selling them that home.
So they're not necessarily okay with the condition. That's why they're trying to sell it, get it from you?
No.
You want the lot, maybe?
That property is, it's a double lot. It's got the most lake frontage on any property on that lake.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
But
I get the concern of our township board. It seems like we've given you multiple avenues to continue on. Life happens, but.
Yeah, the problem is Chase Bank. And if they would have released the funds accordingly, then we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Okay.
And so now we have the money to move forward, and we want the opportunity to move forward.
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, just the applicant, I can sympathize with your situation, but 135,000 is a far cry from what you need to move forward. I think Mr. Roman said on it. Mr. Powell mentioned it. I'm doing some building myself right now, and you're not even close to what you think you need. So I don't think there's any way currently you could achieve what this board is looking for. I mean, you're going to need $300,000 to fix the mess you've got over there.
Any other Mr. Powell?
Okay.
Mr. Excuse me.
Oh.
Let Mr. Powell state. Mr. Powell, go ahead.
Yes, there's another point of consideration, and I want to point it out. Certainly, the owner pointed out many other areas that they might be able to obtain additional funds. And if that had been a realistic option, they could have sold other properties and pulled other properties and pulled that money many years ago. Probably my biggest. Wait a second, sir.
Mr. Hutch, wait.
One of my biggest concerns is sometimes we're our own worst enemies, and to allow an owner to get into a project that in maybe in our heart of hearts and our better judgment, to put $50, $60, $100, $150,000 into a building and then absolutely find out that it can't go any further. Now you've wasted all that money and nobody else is going to want it. Then it's going to be torn down. Now they've gone into the hole even further on a project that can't be finished. And that just is disconcerting to me.
Any other comments from the board? Mr. Roman.
Yeah, just again, Mr. Hutch, you said there is a mortgage on that home now?
Yes.
Okay, how much is owed?
300,000.
300,000. If you tore the house down and sold those lots, both of them, would you get 300,000 for those lots?
No.
So no, you owe 300,000 now, and you're going to need at least another 300,000 to renovate, correct?
No. It's not going to take 300,000.
Okay, but you do owe 300 now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board members? Okay, Mr. Hutch, I'll give you a couple minutes for a closing statement.
Yeah. Yeah, the phone. Okay. If you push to tear down the house and you want me to rebuild the house, it's going to take more money to bring it satisfactory to the same square footage and the same building square footage on that property. So dollar for dollar, I won't have the same square footage on that property. Now, it sounds like if you push me to tear down the property, then I'm going to be forced to put something there that probably will decrease the value of the other properties. And modular homes are not, not as good as a brick structured home. And, the house in the upper garage has a good foundation. The floor joists are all intact. Structural engineer is going to come out, and once I rip out the subfloor and start putting the roof on, he's going to inspect that. If there's any joists that have to be removed, I will remove them, add to them, whatever he suggests. I like that house, the layout, and I would like to live in that house. And well, did you want to say anything?
The only thing I can say is the opinions that we've heard, that they're all slanted towards it's going to be so expensive to build that my brother's going to fail moving forward. The only suggestion I could possibly make, if those people are still adamant with those opinions, is that if we table this for 30 days and meet again in June at the next board meeting, maybe we can prove to you that we've got the bids that are necessary in writing for the work, and that we have extra funds that's needed for lumber price increases or whatever. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. I don't want to see my brother fail in this. But it's ultimately, you have the power to say yes or no to us. And we're at your mercy, even though he's been through a lot of adversity. So anyways, that's a thought.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last questions or comments from the board members? Mr. Powell.
Just as a thought, and maybe Mr. Spencer might have some ideas on this. The report from Lopez alludes to the fact, and I would think that our building official would want this as well, that the building is in need of having a structural engineer to analyze it and then come up with a plan to be able to repair it. So the plans have not even been prepared yet for the owner to know how much work is really necessary. The way the state of the art today is that it's going to be a while before, and maybe the owner will tell me the plans are totally done, but this report says the plans haven't been done yet. And then I personally don't have a problem if we put the owner in a position to be able to come to the conclusion themselves that they can't actually do it. If they come in with a sealed set of plans by a specific date, an actual contractor with a signed contract and proof that the funds are there to be able to do it within a specific period, that might be a way for the owner to say, you know, realistically, I can't do it. And so, because I'll tell you what, I would not be in favor of the owner thinking he can build this himself. That ain't going to happen. So he would have to have a contractor to come in with those prices, and that might be a way that we can put this off for a bit and evaluate it with a little more hard numbers.
Hey, Mike.
Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks. How long do you think that would take, since this is your industry?
Yeah, you're looking at for the engineering to be done. I know Lopez has been on here before, but there's some work that needs to be done. So it's probably 30 days before the engineer can get back out there. I'll guess that it'll be another 30 days before the construction drawings could be done based upon that new report. Then he has to go out and get his contractors to give him prices. So we're probably looking at 90, 120 days before he could probably even be able to pull a permit from the building department.
Mike, what would that study cost?
Can I comment on that?
Please do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did have a firm build, I paid them to draw the plans up for the house. The plans are done. They can be revised a little bit to accomplish, to get a better feel for the bathrooms and stuff. But for the most part, the plans were already established. You know, the structural engineer agreed upon those plans. We can revise the plans and submit them.
And ask for them.
Yeah. So the problem, my understanding was you guys were concerned about the structure of the property. So I hired the structural engineer to go back out there and to, look through everything and come up with his conclusion. And they were submitted yesterday on that.
I believe that 90-day period could be cut by at least 30 days.
Okay,
So,
Mr. Supervisor?
yes. Well, just a moment, Mr. Hutch. Go ahead, trustee Smith.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Hutchin for sharing information with us, and I do empathize with his personal hardships that he shared with the board. And I'd like to thank him for being cooperative thus far with the outside. But my question is for Mr. Spencer. If we did proceed with trustees Powell's proposal of allowing some time, what time period do you feel comfortable allowing?
Well, I'll just so you're aware, the dangerous building hearing officer gave him until June 1st to demolish on his own. If it was not done by June 1st, then it would go to the board at the following meeting for them to enforce the order. So you're not enforcing an order tonight, but I don't know if I can make that call necessarily. That's going to be more up to you guys, I believe, to make that call.
We're just looking for just a ballpark time frame that you think this could actually be completed in.
If he has building plans, let's say 90% complete, that should be enough for a contractor to go out and evaluate. Honestly, a contractor could go out and evaluate on his own to determine. It's pretty obvious what needs to be done on the home.
Okay.
As far as you can look in the windows and see that what needs to be done on the home. When you start getting into any foundation work, that's where obviously the engineer is going to come into play.
It's okay.
I would say 30 days.
You don't know.
30
it's okay.
days, he could
Just wondering.
probably have an estimate from a
Okay.
contractor.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something if it's okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Noble.
This has been going on for 5 years from what I'm reading. And now we're to a point where it shifts the liability over to the building department. I don't think we have enough time to complete everything what we're requiring them to do by the June 1st deadline, what Mr. Spencer said, building official Spencer said. So I just don't see it happening. That's my take on it.
Okay. Mr. Hutch, you had your closing statements. The board has had conversation. You've had your closing statements. The board has had conversation. I need to put this into a motion in a sort, and I will make two motions. If the first one does not pass, I will make the second motion. The first motion that I will have, that I would like to, if my board members will entertain this, is to uphold the dangerous building officer's order for demolition. That would be my motion, looking for support. Mr. Roman? You're supporting. Mr. Roman is supporting.
Support.
We have motion and support. Mr. Noble, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Ruggles,
yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Andrew,
Trustee.
you're muted.
You're muted, Andrew. We couldn't hear you.
trustee
Alright.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Powell. Trustee Powell.
I heard you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. 5 years, yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Treasurer Roman. Correction.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Hutch, I appreciate you coming here and I understand your case. We are going to uphold the dangerous building officer's order for demolition.
What does could you explain uphold? Does
That means
enforcement?
that house is, you got to uphold his order, which means that house has to come down. Okay.
Okay, so if we do a show cause at the board meeting, if we had all our proofs by then, it's sort of a rush, 30 days. But You're
We haven't,
basically-
we haven't at this point given you that option, okay? The board, the motion that was taken was was to uphold the order, okay? So I that's all I can tell you at this point. Lisa?
I don't have the order in front of me, Nick. Do you have it? I guess I just want to make sure that we understand the process. Was there an
Sure.
alternate in the order?
There was not an alternate in the order. It was demolished by June 1st. If it was not demolished by June 1st, it would go before the board for them to enforce demolition through the township to go out for bid.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Explain differently.
That concludes this item at this time. Thank you, Mr. Hutch. Okay,
We were explained the process differently in February.
the board just took, the board, yeah, the board just took, it was actually unanimous action. So, you know, I'm not going to go further into it right now with you, okay, at this time. This matter's been before the board and was voted on to uphold the dangerous building officer's order for demolition. Okay, moving on to item 8B, that would be the second reading of the fee ordinance amended. Mr. Noble.
Good evening. Before you is the second reading for fee ordinance amendment 129 before you tonight. And that involves, as you have in your packet, some of the fees throughout the township. One of the fees was the cemetery, which I sent out a email today explaining when I dove into it along with my deputy, we found out some good information. One being that we have the contract was September 20th signed to prior my administration. But we reached out to Tim Lynch from Lynch and Sons, and it came to my attention that we have one sexton for Oakland County. That's it. So with that being said, there was when I came in, there was another charge that was kind of like double charging our residents. So if you look in that memo, I detailed everything pretty detailed. Not sure if everybody got a chance to read their emails tonight. It's 2 pages.
Any questions from the board? We'll go to adoption. We have looked at this before. We did find out that we are under contract and we needed to move this forward. Is there anything else out there?
No, I'd
Trustee
just like to
Smith.
thank Clerk Noble for diving a little deeper into it and following this board's request through. I appreciate the additional information today. Although I don't love, and thank you for moving forward that we're going to get rid of that duplication of administrative fee. You know, I think some of us have expressed we don't love the cost that's happening, but we do realize we're in a contract. So as we approach this at the end of contract, I hope we all just keep in mind that we would go out for a better bid, of course, in the future. But thank you for looking into it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think you're going to find that's pretty hard. We have one sexton that's in this county. So we'd have to go outside the county, and they're also a keeper of the records. And looking into it, if you look in the memo or the email that I sent out, that it's unusual for a gravesite to cost, not unusual for a gravesite cost 3 times what we charge in other Oakland County communities. And that came from Mr. Lynch, who's in the business.
So, thank you, Anthony. I did read your email, and I think I misspoke. Let me explain myself better. Not the looking for the sexton, but we can reevaluate our fee charge. And so I think moving forward, if we're eliminating that administrative fee,
Yep,
that
I
will be
understand.
helpful to our residents.
I totally understand. Correct.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Any other questions from the board members? That being said, Mr. Noble, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to for the second reading of Ordinance Amendment 129 tonight.
And for the adoption thereof?
And the adoption of the second reading of the Amendment 129 in the ordinance fee.
All right, we have a motion looking for support. I have support from Mr. Roman. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is item 8C, second reading of 7775 Highland Road rezoning. Mr. O'Neill, there you are.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Tonight, this is before you. The 7775 Highland Road request is before you for rezoning from suburban farm to local business. This was at the Planning Commission for a public hearing on April 15th, and then to the Township Board for first reading on April 20th. Again, this is a property that is right behind AutoZone. I can pull up a map if you guys would like to take a look at it again. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Ruggles, would you care to make a motion?
Oh, yeah, sure. I can make a motion here. Let me get back up to the top of this on the agenda. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning of parcel 12-021-21-276-019. The property is currently zoned suburban farm and the rezoning to local business.
We have a motion looking for support.
I'll support.
Support from Mr. Powell. Roll call vote, please.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees. Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. New business. Chief Holland, where are you there, sir? How are you, sir? Request by the
I'm
fire
good.
department. Request for the fire department to purchase a new tanker, 3,500 gallon tanker. And I will give the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, board members. Good to see everybody. I want to apologize first. I cannot hide in my house. My granddaughter's here and she may pop up. So just fair warning with that. What you have before you right now is a request to purchase a 3,500 gallon tanker. And it's our recommendation that we would move forward with the company known as Rosenbauer. And before I go any further, I'd like to introduce Bob Coulter. I've asked him to join us. He's actually the dealer from Rosenbauer. I don't know if he's having technical, he's on the screen, I can see, but he's not joined in yet. So if he pops in there, just in case you have any questions regarding warranty or anything like that, I've asked him to join us. I can tell you, when we went to bid, we received only 3 bids. We received the bid from Pierce, from Spartan, and from Rosenbauer. It was a lengthy process, and that was purposeful. I wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence because, you know what, it's such an important investment. There's so much money involved here. And so we put some additional procedures in place, stuff that we've really never done before. Our initial step was also obviously just to review the spec. We went through the specs. We spent a lot of time. We actually started this process when Chief Marinucci was here. So we spent a lot of time with it. And then we did an in-person interview with each vendor. We gave them an opportunity to come in, kind of speak their piece, sell their truck to us, really, toot their own horn. And that narrowed it down to 2 companies. At that point, we were deciding on between Rosenbauer and between Spartan. And then our third step was we found 2 departments that had similar apparatus. One was in Fowlerville and one was in Milford. So we did visit both departments, and I'll tell you, it was a very difficult decision. And when it really came down to it with both companies, we felt that the Rosenbauer apparatus was just a better build. Because what made it easier is both these trucks, every truck was a commercial chassis. So they all bid on the same chassis, same motor, same drivetrain, same pump. It really came down to the engineer build of the apparatus itself. And we just felt it was built better material. We talked to Fowlerville. That was the apparatus that was similar to what we want to purchase. And they had nothing bad to say. Matter of fact, they said the service is outstanding. and they're actually getting ready to order a sister truck to this. One of our sergeants went out and he drove it. And then, so it's our recommendation at this point. I provided, I think, everybody with all the prices that came in from all three companies. And we would like at this time to move forward with a purchase of Rose Bar at $473,812. That didn't sound like a motion, did it? Not sure.
Chief, I have a question to ask you. I know that you've looked at that vehicle, and I know that the specification book on that looked like a phone book.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get into that. I know that you've done your homework and you've been looking at this for quite some time. The question I ask you is, what are the offset funds of the 2 tankers that we sold? Do you know that off the top of your head?
You mean what's the price differencing?
Well, I mean, what we sold the other ones for? I beg your pardon.
I don't know that offhand. I don't.
I know that we're going to be in good shape there, so I was just curious.
We don't plan on this apparatus is going to be paid for on delivery. We're not going to put any deposits on it. We'd rather keep our money here because I don't know how long it's going to take. This could be up to a year or even maybe a little longer to even take delivery of this apparatus. So
right.
Mr. Roman, I spent some time with him, and this is definitely his recommendation.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Most of those types of vehicles do take a considerable amount of time. Mr. Ruggles, I saw your hand up.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna comment. I agree with your homework. It sounds like you put a lot of time into researching which one you want to go with. I'm not going to disagree with you, but up until this point, I thought that Pierce was top of the line, but maybe that's changed.
Well, I'm not here to tell you what Pierce's status of top of the line or not. This is why we wanted to make this truck non-proprietary, not use a custom chassis. We wanted everybody got to bid on the same chassis because it works for this truck. And the same motor, Detroit diesel, same pump, everything on this truck is the same except the engineered build in the body. Pierce came in, and Pierce obviously has a unique and an outstanding product. The difference in price was about $30,000. So I really had to look at, is it worth to spend an additional $30,000 if Rosenbauer is providing an unbelievable apparatus too that is going to function for this community. So that's kind of where we were looking right there. Does that kind of make sense to you?
It does. And I think in the past, we'd even gone with Pierce, even though they were more expensive. But, if in your expert opinion that they're a comparable product, I have no issue with it. I just always thought that Pierce was far and away the better one. But
and I can tell you that the city of Farmington Hills, pretty much other than one piece apparatus, is all with Rosenbauer. And talking to Bob, they are now selling the West Bloomfield Rosenbauer. It's not an apparatus that really not heard of. All three of these companies are good apparatus, no doubt about it, hands down. So.
Mr. Noble.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Trustee Ruggles because I was able to sit through that first presentation, Chief, and that was one of the questions I had. Due to COVID, the guy that first representative is the chief still here? I don't see him. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Right here,
you went off my screen. One of the main factors was getting parts when they broke down as we sat through that presentation. And then you had a phenomenal person that's been our mechanic or MDOT inspector. I forget his name, but he sat through that presentation. The first question, will we be able to get those parts with going through this other company? Because when he gave that presentation, he had the diligence to look in the future, knowing that COVID slows these parts down, and he's able to set those apart. I think he said he spent about $100,000 in inventory. So is this other company, are we going to run into that same problem using him? If something breaks down, we're going to be able to use those parts, through our mechanic, because I was really impressed with them.
And you're right. That's what made this decision so difficult. Hey, Bob, are you still on with us? I seen he signed off. This was the reason I had him on here, and I don't know what happened. Here he is. Bob, did you hear the Clerk Noble's question regarding parts availability?
In reference to part availability, the parts would either come from our service location or they would come from the factory. And within a very short time meaning if they come from the factory, you're looking at 2 to 4 days. And if we have them in stock, then it would be immediate. And we have a large stocking inventory of the parts that are used on your vehicle.
Bob, do you have, I mean, knowledge right now with that, with your inventory? How much do you have set aside for customers such as ourselves? That's kind of concerning with COVID, because as we all know, the supply chain's been jammed up. A supervisor and Kowal and I were speaking one of the businesses, employees, everything's backlogged 3 weeks. They can't get, the supply chain's jammed up all the way around. So in your estimation, do we have the parts available?
If you saw the inventory that they had at Rosenbauer at the factory, you'd be shocked on what they stock and what they have available for parts.
So you know that they have this, you have that knowledge right now that we would only be out. We don't need a truck down for a month.
No, that unless the truck was involved in an accident, there would be no reason for it to be down for a month.
Parts would be an issue. That's what I'm asking you.
No,
so you don't see any. You don't see any
availability are available, like I said, within 2 to 4 days. A lot of times the parts are overnighted when the technician has quite an inventory on his truck when he's there, because all of the service work will be done at your location. You won't have to take the truck anywhere other than to the Freightliner dealer if it's a Freightliner issue.
Okay. That answers that. And also the one good thing is that we're hoping that a year from now, we don't have the same constraints that we have right now. And that would be just more or less a time of delivery. Andrea, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Supervisor Koval. No, I just want to thank Steve Henneman. I had a lengthy conversation within reason like a month ago on all his background work that he did. I agree. It was every bit a small encyclopedia of paperwork that he has been doing. And I also want to thank John for, supporting Steve to get that done. So thank you. Good job, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Roman?
Yeah, so to all of you, I did sit in on 2 of the presentations. I sat in on the Spartan and the Rosenbauer. And wow, I got to tell you, they both put on super presentations. I would respect Chief Holland for going with either company. But I did figure your decision was going to come down to going to actually look and ride on these trucks. And, John, I totally support your choice. And thanks to your whole staff for all the time and effort they put in.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other further questions for John? Mr. Powell?
Along the same line as Treasurer Roman, I wanted to personally thank the fire department. Every time I get an opportunity to sit down with the fire department, I really enjoy learning from them. They are truly experts in their field. They did a great job of presenting the options to me, and I was able to ask some questions that are going to help me personally in the future in my professional life. And I respect and will support their recommendation.
Very good. Any other comments from the board? Okay, that being done, I would like to entertain a motion. Andrea, care to help us along here?
Sure. Make a motion to support the purchase of a $3,500 gallon tanker not to exceed the dollar amount of $4,73812 from the Rosenbauer Company.
Support.
I have a motion. I have support from Trustee Smith. Roll call vote, please.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Motion carries. Chief, get your truck going.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
On behalf of Rosenbauer and our dealership, we would thank you for the opportunity to provide your fire apparatus for you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you for being here
Appreciate
this
that.
evening. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Next item 9B, Resolution 21-017, West Nile virus reimbursement request. You'll see before you a letter from Aaron Potter, our DPS director, who was unavailable tonight because his he's at I believe a band rehearsal or something's going on tonight that he couldn't make it. Yes, Mr. Ruggles?
I was just gonna make a motion, if that's okay.
Very good.
I'll make a motion to approve the West Nile virus expense reimbursement request, resolution number 21-017.
I'll support.
We have motion, we support, roll call vote.
Question, do
Go
we need
ahead.
a dollar limitation approved or not?
Well, I would say not to exceed 5,600.
Okay, amend the motion to say not to exceed $5,600.
Thank you. Okay, we have motion, we have support, roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal.
Very good, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is item C, request for fireworks display permit, pretty boilerplate. We seem to do this. Well, last year was a little odd. So this year it's better to see that we're starting to see these. So maybe some sense of normalcy. Mr. Noble, you care to run with this?
Yes, sir. So before you tonight, I'm requesting approval for the Cedar Island Lake fireworks display permit.
And it has a rain date to be determined, which is good. I think John kind of goes along with that. And Jason, you would go along with that, correct, Jason?
That's correct. Yep.
Victor?
Was that in the form of a motion, Mr. Noble?
Yes, sir. Form of a motion.
We have a motion.
I'll
We have support from Mr. Powell. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes, trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Item D is a request for transfer funds from the general fund to the improvement revolving fund. As we all know, we are trying to position ourselves in the best possible financial position, as the township has always done, and this board has historically done, to prepare ourselves for our future project. And in the conclusions that we have with our most recent audit, we have been instructed to save some money for the rainy day that hopefully isn't a rainy day and would be a building. Mr. Roman?
Well, yeah, each year the in-house electeds get together and we designate a certain amount of our general fund balance towards capital expenditures. Plant Moran has planted the seed in our heads that, it's fine to actually move the money and just get it done instead of designating it every year. And just so the board knows, if we move the money from general fund to improvement revolving, and for any reason we decide we need to put that money back in general, we can do it. But I do believe that at this point in time, it shows the board's commitment to the civic center development. And I think it gains some credibility with our residents to show them that, hey, yeah, we want to build. And guess what? We have spent wisely. The boards over the years have helped save. If we make this transfer, it would be close to right around $8 million now that we'd have in our improvement revolving fund. Any questions from my fellow board members? And keep in mind, if we go ahead and transfer this money, we're still going to have a little bit over $5 million still left in the general fund.
Okay, Mr. Roman, care to make up? Mr. Powell?
I have a question, Mr. Roman. In the general practice of your department, what is the rule of thumb for the funds that should be left on hand for problem years that might happen?
Yeah. So Plant Moran says at least 3 months of expenses. They're more comfortable with 6 months. Here with this transfer, we're giving ourselves about a year's worth. So, like I said, we've still got a very healthy balance in general.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Roman? Mr. Roman, you care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to transfer $5 million from the general fund to the improvement revolving fund.
Very good. We have a motion, look for support. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. Roll call vote, please, Mr. Noble.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item, item E, request to consider approval of revised recording secretary fee. Mr. O'Neill, are you still there? Okay. Well,
I am still here.
Okay.
This was your memo. I don't know if you want to take it or you want me to touch on it.
I was going to let you take it, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. It's pretty straightforward. The recording secretaries that the township has employed over the years for all of its boards and commissions have done a fabulous job. It's hard work. It's somewhat overwhelming at times. It's not a job that I would want to do. And so I feel that we're very lucky to have the recording secretaries that we have. And along those same lines, we want to make sure that we're paying them competitively. So the memo that you have before you from Mr. Kowal's office proposes to, I think, increase the pay for all boards and commissions. Just in a nutshell, I think the township board's recording secretary will make a flat $175 for a 2-hour meeting. And then beyond that, she used to make $25 for each additional hour. In this format, she would make $25 for each additional half hour. And for the planning commission, the ZBA, and for all the other committees, that would be a $125 base fee for the first hour. Some meetings don't go much longer than an hour, but if they do, then it would be $25 for each additional half hour as well, which would bring the planning commission recording secretary, for example, in a 2-hour meeting back to the $175 flat fee that they're currently paid. But in the case of the ZBA recording secretary, as Mr. Powell can attest, those meetings have been real barn burners lately and have gone for many hours. And the $125 that's been paid as a flat fee to that recording secretary is really, I think, pretty inequitable. So this puts all the other non-township board members on non-township board recording secretaries for those meetings on kind of the same even playing field. And the one thing I will point out in all of this is that the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals do actually have a revenue stream to offset the cost of recording secretaries. Every ZBA case and every applicant to the Planning Commission has a fee for the meeting. And so while I don't think that in the end, this is going to net out to be much of an expense, I think it'll probably kind of balance out and really be pretty close to where we're at now. If I had to guess, there is a revenue source to offset the cost of the recording secretaries for those two bodies, which are the ones that meet the most. So other than that, the memo is pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Mr. O'Neill, I certainly appreciate you working with my office and your office. And the reason that Mr. O'Neill was really involved in this more so was because obviously his department deals with more of the meetings and the recordings that have to be done. So we were trying to make this as equitable as possible. And then on the same note, currently we have some in-house employees that are willing to do this and are very, very good at it. But we wanted to have this set up as almost like a scale, so to speak, so that in the event that we had to do additional outsourcing, that this would not be a moving target. This would be set. It would make things much easier for Mr. O'Neill and other meetings that would be in place. Mr. Powell.
I want to actually support what Sean has said. I believe we were told that we set the record for at least EBA meetings. We 4.5, almost 5 hours one evening. And so it was pushing midnight when we finally closed down the meeting. And so I remind our board that not only does the recording secretary have to be there and available during the entire meeting, but then that length of time, it has to be more than doubled because all her minutes taken during that time now have to be placed in writing. And so I really appreciate Sean and the township's suggestion here and make these changes. These people are just outstanding, and I want to thank them personally.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board? Okay.
Rick, Supervisor Kowa, I'd also like to thank the two ladies that work for us. It's a very hard job. They're doing it after hours, and I'd like to thank your office along with Sean, kind of coming up with this pay structure.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggles, care to make a motion? Oh,
I just have a
Trustee Smith?
quick comment. So
Yes, Trustee Smith, I'm
I
sorry.
too, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just have a quick comment. I too appreciate their time, everybody's time here, and our board secretary, Jennifer, does an excellent job, and I think our meeting minutes are very detailed. I understand that like ZBA and things are going lengthy, and so I understand the reasoning for it. But there is a discrepancy in the detail versus the township board meeting minutes versus the we're calling it other township meeting minutes. I do read our meeting minutes often, as much as I possibly can from other subcommittees and commissions, and they're not as detailed. So I'm not putting it in a formal request, but if we are just talking on this subject, I would just like to informally request if they can just be a little bit more detailed, would be very helpful to me as a trustee when we're reading them.
Very good.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments from the board? Mr. Ruggles.
We can make your motion. I don't know, how specific would you like this motion? I don't need to include the,
I would say adopt the proposed rates.
okay. All right, I'll make the motion to approve the recording secretary fee structure proposal.
I have a motion, looking for support. I have support from Mr. Roman. Roll call vote, please.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Carries. Thank you. We are now moving on to item F, first reading of the Stanford rezoning. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, thank you.
Keep moving around on my screen for some reason.
I know, and I was looking for other tabs and I lost the screen and I didn't know if I was muted, so I was not. Before you tonight is another rezoning request, this one by Stanford Holding LLC. This property is a 45.5 acre parcel at the northwest corner of Bogey Lake Road and Cedar Island Road, of which they request approval of a rezoning of approximately 10.3 acres from agricultural to R1A single family residential, which is 1 acre zoning. This was at the Planning Commission on May 6th for public hearing, at which time Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed rezoning. So tonight it's before you for first reading. In the packet of information, you'll have those minutes. You'll have a memo from me to the Planning Commission, which kind of clarifies the request, because the portion of the property that's being rezoned does not perfectly match the survey that Mr. Tom Tomsma, who is joining us tonight, prepared for the land division. And he did a nice job preparing it all, but and I'll explain why it differs slightly. And then there's a planning review letter, which does recommend approval, citing that it's consistent with the master plan, and also citing that it's compatible with the surrounding area. It would not result in a spot zoning, and that this parcel of land is a reasonable module of land for single family residential development. The one thing the Planning Commission made a recommendation on was waiving the rezoning traffic study. And it was my recommendation that it be waived. The rezoning will result in a maximum of 8 divisions, the way it's been proposed, 8 lots being created. So it is absolutely not going to generate much traffic at all. If I can share my screen, let me get out here to share screen so I can show you where this is at. Okay, let me back out here. So you'll see Lakeland High School. And once this catches up, it's this parcel of land right here. So on one end is Sunshine Plants. The ITC corridor runs down the west side. Sunshine Plants is along the north side. Bogey Lake Road is on the east side, and then Cedar Island's on the south. The only part of this whole chunk that's not owned by the applicant is this parcel in the corner. There's a few acres here on the corner, but it's just really a farm field at this point. And if I can, let me back out here and share a different screen. So try not to get you all seasick as I zip through here. Okay. So this was a public hearing notice, and this to me is the most clear picture of what's being requested out there. Here again, you can see the aerial with Sunshine Nurseries to the north, ITC to the west, Cedar Island on the south, and Bogey Lake Road on the east. There's that exception in the corner that's not owned by the applicant. This rectangle here is the approximate 10.3 acres that's going to be is requested to be rezoned. And then the balance of the property will be about 35 acres. In total, there's roughly 45.5 acres. So the larger parcel has that will remain ag, has frontage on Bogey Lake Road. And then if I move back through the survey provided by Mr. Tomsma, and the orientation is slightly rotated. So Cedar Island Road is no longer on the bottom, it's on the side. So north is to the left as you're looking at the screen. He's proposing to leave a gap here of, I think it's about 176 feet, which is a little bit wider than his proposed lots of 150. And that is to get access through this section of property out to Cedar Island Road if he chooses to develop a subdivision or residential development on the north portion of this property. So it just really made sense for us to not leave this little stub zoned any differently than the rest of the frontage parcels. The other thing I think that it presents is an opportunity for him to possibly line up that connection appropriately on Cedar Island Road. I got a call from a neighbor and I thought it was a really good comment, and he lives right across the street and mentioned that there's a side street that goes into Carla Hills. And from his perspective, just because of sight vision and other things, it might make sense to leave that gap there so that the road commission, the township, and the property owner can feel more comfortable about kind of how that future potential development to the north could access Cedar Island Road safely. So I don't want to get too far down the road as far as how the northerly portion that will remain ag is developed, but I want to just mention to you kind of if you're looking at the layout in those documents, why there's a gap. So basically back to the request, it is to rezone from ag to R1A, which would be 1 acre lots, this 10.3 acres as it was shown in that survey configuration a second ago. If you have, and again, the recommendation of the Planning Commission was that the traffic study, rezoning traffic study be waived, and I do support that recommendation. If you have any questions. Yes, sir.
I got a question.
Sure.
This is, once he gets the rezoning, this is just some simple splits and he can do, right? He wouldn't need our permission, and he doesn't have to put that road in where you're speaking, right? He could put it wherever he wants.
That's correct, but I am going to plan to meet with him to discuss longer term. If he does want to leave that, I think it's about 176 feet of property open to Cedar Island Road, I think he really needs to be careful and probably talk with the road commission about exactly where that needs to be for sight distance and for safety. So, he does have flexibility, but then there could be some repercussions later on when he goes to develop I'm going to say the parent parcel, if there's not adequate sight distance because of the topography out there on Cedar Island Road as you move west toward the ITC corridor. So
yeah.
One other thing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Does the applicant have an issue with where that access is at?
I don't know. We haven't really gotten into it. And while, again, it is true to your point, he can move it wherever he'd like. It's really not part of this request. It's something that, we do want to discuss with him. Similarly, we asked him to consider putting sidewalks in. We can't require in a simple land division for sidewalks to be placed. However, as you can see to the west here in Cedar Meadows, they did put a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk, and we would really like to continue that. And historically, the township's gone in and filled in gaps, and I think this ITC crossing would be one that would be a great candidate for the Parks Committee to recommend to the board that we use some Parks funds to put that sidewalk in and connect it all the way across the Cedar Island frontage with the hope of eventually connecting it to the Lakeland School campus. So again,
Yeah,
that's just something to mention. It's not part of this request tonight, but I think it's important.
I think at the planning commission, he said he would take that into consideration,
He did.
but I also say the same type of stuff to my wife, so I'm not sure how serious it was.
Fair enough.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Powell?
Yes, I was just wondering if Mr. O'Neill might explain to the board how the splits are approved and administratively, because I have a comment regarding the splits, and I wanted to make sure that the board understood how those splits are approved, and we won't see those.
Sure, absolutely. So really, when a split like this comes in, let's just assume the rezoning moves forward. Mr. Tomsma and his group would have the ability to go to the assessing office and with the surveys, providers or documents similar to the surveys that have been provided in his packet, would be able to make application. And then Janine Smith would administratively review and then potentially approve these splits as long as they're consistent with the zoning ordinance requirements for lot area and lot width and frontage. Right. And in this case, because it fronts on 2 county roads, they have the ability to take all these splits off the south end and still have plenty of frontage on Bogey Lake Road. So as long as they have improved road frontage, either through on a county road or a private road, it's very quick. It's very easy and is able to be done administratively. Oftentimes we see splits like this happen when someone comes in with a private road application, and they'll go through basically an engineering approval, and our office oversees that process and the construction of the road. And then again, the same process would happen there, where the assessing office would consider a survey that lays out the division, and as long as it's consistent with the zoning ordinance. And I should also mention the township's land division ordinance and the state's land division act. It's just a very straightforward and fairly quick administrative process. So Mr. Powell is correct. If this property is rezoned after first and then second reading, then it would be the last time that you would consider this particular request, and these 8 lots, provided that it meets all the standards that I mentioned, could be just taken care of and done, and he could move forward with these building sites.
Okay, now my statement is that this is a long-standing practice of property owners and developers, in that, and all of you can understand this a little bit. For virtually no cost whatsoever, the developer ends up with building sites that no roads required, no utilities are required, everything's on the front. They put a driveway in and get a building permit. They're virtually 100% profit without any improvements necessary for the township. If this were a development, I would be leading the request to not only have for that sidewalk, but I'd be leading the request to turn those lots around and have the access to all of those lots internal, with an internal road back on what is labeled Parcel A there, so that you don't have a driveway every 150 feet along an existing county road. So when Cedar Island Road eventually gets paved, it will become a major thoroughfare that runs east-west. There will be a driveway every 150 feet along this roadway. And if you go back to the document that Sean had up there, the Cedar Meadows condominium to the west, as well as to the west, and then also to the project to the south, all of those surrounding developments have drives internal, not off of Cedar Island Road. Those of you that have driven Bogey Lake Road can see the impact that how great it would have been if all those homes that front Bogey Lake Road did not have driveways off of Bogey Lake Road, but had them internal instead of off of the major thoroughfare. So we really don't have, because of the way this is being done, we don't have really, I don't believe, unless Mr. O'Neill can tell us that we do, we don't have any ability to ask him to put a roadway in to serve these homes off the inside instead of off an existing county road. So that's one question I'd like Sean to answer. And the next one is, the Road Commission for Oakland County just it has adopted a new master plan right-of-way, a right-of-way master plan for the county. I'd be very curious to know, off of Bogey Lake Road and Cedar Island Road, the document that I got to look at, most of their recommendations are 120-foot road right-of-ways instead of the 66-foot right-of-way that is shown here. The downside to a larger right-of-way for the road commission is our ordinance requires that all right-of-way be removed from the net area for the proposed splits. And that may be problematic if the road commission is asking for a larger right-of-way along Cedar Island Road. So I negatively identify this as a rape and run. The contractor and the developer comes in, gets as much money as he can with virtually no outlying money whatsoever. They leave, and there's a whole parcel inside now that needs to be developed to a much higher density in order to make all the improvements worth it. In this particular case, I'm in total agreement that we want more density here. So I'm almost have a tendency to say, why stop at R1A, 1 acre minimum? Net, I want to say, why not rethink this and increase the density and allow him to put a development in here, which will help us extend sanitary sewer all the way from where it currently exits on where it currently exists on the east side of Lakeland High School property. We need help extending that all the way around to service this parcel and all the properties north of here. And so I labored to kind of paint the picture here, because it means that if we rezone this as requested, we're taking acreage out away from a future development that will help us extend sanitary sewer.
Mike? Sorry.
Yes.
Can I comment back, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
You remember a couple of years ago, we saw a development on this piece, projected development. That was high density.
Yes.
And at the time, I think the cost of the sewer and the water was so much that, it prevented it.
Well, it was presented that way, but quite frankly, in sitting down with the in-house officials at that time, there was a very easy way to make that happen at really no additional cost to the developer than using their tap fees to be able to extend that sewer. So it was presented that way, quite frankly, because the developer wanted it to end up with that end result.
See, also, I would just say towards your comment, he has owned the property for a considerable amount of years, and I'm sure it was quite expensive. So he's not totally uninvested, but and he's owned it long enough to get those splits. So it's his right to do what he's doing, as a property owner. But I understand what you're saying as well.
And I agree. I know and respect Mr. Thomas very much, and he knows that. But obviously, I have my township hat on.
Very good. Okay.
I don't know if you wanted me to answer. Sorry. So I looked at that map regarding future right-of-way for the road commission just yesterday, and you are correct. It is projected to be almost the entire township is 120 feet, which seems a little excessive, but that's what they're proposing. And not a single road in the township's less than 86 feet. So anything, nothing will be 66 feet, nothing. And I'm not aware of major roads or major thoroughfares being paved through our community, but maybe 200 years from now. And so they'll have the right of way. But all kidding aside, the road access you mentioned would be kind of an access management approach to acreage development. And I don't object to it. And I don't object to anything you said, because I agree with you. But I also agree with Mr. Ruggles. He has a right to get this task for rezoning approval. And then once that happens, really, he can go a couple of different directions. He can do a simple split. He could go with much larger lots, even though the acreage or the density allows him to be more dense, or he could come in and ask for a development approval. And I think it kind of comes down to a property rights kind of thing. And I do see both sides of it, but it certainly is his right to make this request. And but I do think long-term, what you're talking about does make more sense to me. But perhaps the way I looked at it too was maybe it splits the difference. Maybe some of this property goes lower density and it creates a smaller parent parcel. So it limits the number of units that could potentially be brought into that remaining 35, 36 acres, which may make the surrounding neighbors happier because they're, I think the conceptual we talked about a few years back, they were trying to put like 90 homes in here. And of course, it never went beyond a discussion.
Right.
That's quite a few homes by the time you take out stormwater and roads and rights of way, things like that. It was pretty dense. So this being divided this way and having 8 acreage lots drives that potential number of units on the balance of this property down a bit. So it does lessen the impact for those in the surrounding area. So maybe that's another way to look at it. And, one change since that initial meeting is that, the township and the school district are working together with state funds to bring the water main down Bogey Lake Road. I think it's almost 2.5 miles. And so that will just sort of be delivered along the Bogey Lake frontage of this property, which, is really a good thing. I mean, it's fire safety for everyone, and it's high quality water for the school campus and anyone else who wants to tie in. So, I do think that's going to probably mean that the balance of this property, the likelihood of it being developed is probably going to be accelerated by the fact that this utility is being brought by others to this property effectively at no cost to them. So I do think the balance of this property will develop fairly quickly if the market stays strong.
Okay, very good. Mr. Roman.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I think Scott and Mike, you're talking about the previous development. One of the big reasons it died was because Huron Valley Schools refused to share in the cost of bringing the water line down. And you guys are absolutely correct. They're going to get free water now. But Sean, if this split is approved, is that 10 acres? Is that within 200 feet of Bogey Lake Road? It almost looks like it's not.
I don't know. It's real close. Let me take a look here.
I almost think it almost looks like they're splitting that piece off so that they're not within 200 feet of Bogey Lake Road.
They don't actually own that corner.
Correct, but the way the lot is now, it's all one parcel, correct?
That's correct.
So they're within 200 feet of where the water line will be.
I don't know if they are.
I'm kind of talking.
You're talking in this area?
No, up there. So up there, they're within 200 feet.
Well, that statement is about a year and a half from being true, Mr. Roman. There's no water there now.
Oh, no, I understand that, Rick. I'm just curious if the 10-acre parcel would be within 200 feet. I'm guessing not, but I was just curious.
It's all timing, and right now we can't. That's
what are we? A year and a half still out, Rick?
Could be a year to a year and a half. I'm going to guess.
Okay. Question for Mr. Powell: if you brought the sewer line up from the school up Bogey Lake Road, Mike, who would you propose pays for it?
Well, there are a number of different options to do that. I've been involved with developments to where the community uses the tap fees generated by the proposed development and uses those tap fees to extend the utility for the developer. And so he's still responsible for putting the sewers in his project, but the tap fees for each building is used to extend the sewer to the site.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments at this time? This time I would like to entertain a motion. Liz, would you care to make a motion?
So I'm using my phone and we have a 212-page packet. So bear with me for a minute as I look at the agenda. Unless someone else has it ready, you can pass on me, please.
Any other volunteers?
Anyone else have it pulled up quickly?
Yeah, I think I do here.
Go ahead,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ruggles.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Stanford Holdings rezoning request as described as parcel number 12-29-4 476-006 vacant parcel on the corner of Bogey Lake and Cedar Island Road, consisting of approximately 45.5 acres, of which approximately 10.3 is going to be rezoned. The rezoning will go from AG to R1A, single family residential.
We have a motion looking for Mr. O'Neill.
I was just going to say, just for the record, it would be to move this to second reading at this.
Second reading, correct.
Second reading.
Correct.
And I think that it was requested to add in there the waiver of the proposed traffic study.
Oh, and
Sorry.
approve the recommendation from the planning commission to waive the traffic study.
We have a motion looking for support. Mr. Powell.
No, I'd like not to support this one.
All right,
I'll
Mr.
support.
Roman. Mr. Roman will support. Mr. Noble, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Because he has the right to do this per our zoning ordinance, I'm voting yes.
clerk Noble, yes, treasurer Roman,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal.
Yes. Thank you. This next item is also in your wheelhouse, Mr. O'Neill. Request to approve Lake Point Plan Development Agreement.
Yes, sir. There are a few tonight. Lake Point, you are all familiar with. Most recently, you considered an extension to their site plan just a couple of months ago. On May 6th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the plan development agreement. They did recommend the waiver of the community impact statement. Just for a little bit of background, the community impact statement is required on projects that are PD projects unless you explicitly waive them. This happens to be a 69 unit project that is right across the street from a project that's almost identical. And just by virtue of the fact that they're zoned differently, one was not required to have one, one is required to have one unless you waive it. So I really think the intent of that was for when Meyer comes in or Kroger comes in or a 400 unit neighborhood comes in, that a community impact statement be done for obvious reasons, which, evaluates many things out there. So I had no objection to their recommended waiver of that. The site plan was approved by the Planning Commission. Final site plan was approved at that May 6th meeting. And again, before you is the packet of information on the development agreement. A couple things I'd like to point out beyond what I've already mentioned is that since you last saw them, they've added to their community benefit a $5,000 contribution to the park fund. And they also, if they're unable to place the sidewalk off-site that will run from the edge of their property to Independence Village, if they're unable to do that and they've been unsuccessful in getting any response from them, and I've been copied on all of the correspondence, and Independence Village does not seem interested, and they don't have to be, but instead of that, they would make a $2,050 contribution, which is the approximate cost of that short section of sidewalk to make the connection to Independence Village into a pathway fund that can be used for connections in other parts of the community. So those are a couple of highlights that I think should be called out. And if you have any other questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Powell.
I certainly would like to point out the fact that they are providing a 60-foot road half right of way, recognizing the proposed 120-foot road right of way that the Oakland County Road Commission master plan has. And also in looking at the landscape plan, one of the concerns that I had was the ominous look of the buildings as you drive down Union Lake Road. They are ranch style homes, however, and there will be a berm between the sidewalk and the buildings themselves, and it's going to be fairly heavily planted. So I think this is a lot of density with very little back to the community. I'm very, very pleased that they stepped up with a donation to the park fund. But I think this will be a good development for the community. So thank you for the use of this property.
Very good. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, oh, trustee Smith, please.
So I have shared this concern every time this has come before on first and second and now third reading, that I have the great concern of the traffic and effect this will have on Union Lake Road. I still have that concern and just want to place it on the record this evening that I'm so disappointed that this developer has continued to disregard my request to widen this road or put in a turn lane or do something that will help this portion of Union Lake Road. This will definitely negatively affect our residents, the amount of traffic. I thought it was so silly when they said things like 55-year-old and up are not active. That's, most of our board. So that's like such a silly thing to say, that 55-year-olds aren't out and about. So I just want to place that on the record, my disappointment in this development again, that they aren't making any voluntary road improvement there. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion. Mr. Powell?
If I could respectfully request that any motion include the review comments that were part of the record, as well as the other items I mentioned regarding community benefit and the waiver of the community impact statement as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I actually am not in favor of waiving that. I don't know if anyone would like to have discussion about that.
No further discussion? Mr. Powell, would you care to make a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, for the reasons that Ms. Smith stated, I believe the Union Lake corridor has a great deal of traffic problems and issues, and quite frankly, I point out that there's no passing lane being proposed here as well. So left-hand turns going into this project are going to stop traffic until traffic clears. I am actually going to be voting no on this, Mr. Supervisor.
Very good. Okay, so I will entertain a motion from someone else. Mr. Noble?
Make the motion to move forward with this. I don't think we should put this on the back of this developer when we had development all the way down Union Lake Road. It is a problem. Hopefully that the Oakland County Road Commission will take note of that in a few years. I don't have that schedule, but he's the last one in the house. I know how expensive it would be to put that turning lane in, and it is a problem. And I respectfully acknowledge that along with Trustee Smith's comments, but I don't think we should put it on the backs of him for being one of the last developments on Union Lake Road. So I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, would you care to restate your motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to restate my motion to move forward in regards to Lake Point Development Agreement.
I have a motion to move forward and approve the Lake Point Plan Development Agreement approval with comments and waive of the, what was that, Sean?
It's community impact statement. It would be the contributions that were cited tonight, and then also the review comments and the requirements that were brought out in those reviews.
Okay, Jennifer, please make that part of the motion. That being said, the motion, looking for support. I'm making the motion, looking for support, or Mr. Noble made the motion, I beg your pardon. I will give it support. Okay, we have motion and support. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman. I don't think we can hear him.
Yes.
Treasurer Roman. Okay, yes. Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Powell.
No.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
No.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Next item is the item that if we get this, hold on one second here. Request to consider approval of consent judgment in the matter of White Lake versus Brendel. Lisa, come on. You are muted.
there should be a drinking game every time someone has to say you were on mute.
Somebody will figure it out.
Yeah, as you know, we're in litigation with the owner and the tenants of the property, which we all know as Brendel's. I don't know how much detail you need, seeing as though I did provide attorney-client privileged communication to the board. Long and short of it is we have worked out a consent judgment. All of the parties signed off on it, just waiting on township board approval. The consent judgment in a nutshell requires cessation of the business, agrees that there, as of the cessation date that we put in there, that any legal non-conforming status that may have existed on either of the parcels will be vacated, and that any future development or use of the property will have to be in conformance with current township zoning ordinances. The only question that remains is the blank space you have on paragraph 2. And that blank space is because the current occupant is looking for an alternate location to conduct the business. I understand she needs additional time in order to secure that location. So she is requesting the cessation date inserted in paragraph 2 to be November 1st of this year. I explained to the attorney, who I believe is here and prepared to discuss these issues with the board, as well as Susan Armstrong, the current occupant of the property. And I discussed with her that that seems like it's a long time, and what if you close on the property sooner? And I think that they are in agreement that we could insert in there language to the effect of 30 days after closing on a purchase or lease of the property, or November 1st, whichever date is sooner. And the benefit of doing that is, if in fact she is able to secure an alternate location, then she wants to leave the property as much as we want this business removed from the property, and I'm sure all the neighbors want it removed from the property. I know that if Jason Hudson is here, Jason has been receiving complaints about the property that the township board probably should be aware of before making this decision. I guess something else that could be done is we could add some language that requires whatever modifications need to be done in order to limit the complaints that are coming in between now and November 1st. And that's really all I have to say. I know Michelle Harrell, who is the attorney for Susan Armstrong, is here. I believe Susan Armstrong is here as well, and they can answer any more questions. And I believe they'd like to address the board in better explaining the reason for the delay.
And the attorney's name is that's presenting, would be presenting tonight from their
Michelle Harrell.
Okay. We don't see identifiable. It must be a phone number on the screen. This time, Michelle, if you care to address the board, you'll have to push the star
6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Star 6 to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the board, please.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, very good.
Oh, good. Okay, I can't see anyone, so I don't know if we're doing this right, but my name is Michelle Harrell. I'm an attorney. I represent the occupant / tenant of the property, and Susan Armstrong, who is also on the phone here. I believe she's probably muted. And thank you for considering the consent judgment tonight. And I concur in what Lisa Hominy said about the consent judgment, and that we are very eager to move. And I'm not going to go into a lot of the background with the seller, the prior owner of the property, because that's part of our litigation and it's very contentious. But Ms. Armstrong purchased this business. She was very excited to open it and run it. And we ran into obviously a huge problem with the zoning and issues that the neighbors had been having and still have. So we've tried to be a very good citizen and accommodate the neighbors, address complaints when we receive them. The nature of the business sometimes makes it very difficult to be a good neighbor, just because of the functionality of running a sanitation business. But we're very happy to cooperate with Jason and Lisa and our neighbors. And we very quickly tried to resolve the case with the township that the township unfortunately had to file and agree to what we think is a good resolution. The November 1st date is something that we request. We know it's in your discretion. And the reason is that it was very difficult to find a new location, as you can imagine, for this type of business. And, you know, we're going to be moving into a different city, but purchasing a property that would work for this business is an industrial property. And there's lots of complications with buying an industrial property or leasing an industrial property. You have to do some environmental approvals and other things and permitting that's outside of our control. So we're moving very diligently. We've begun the environmental. We have started moving forward on permits and other things we need to move as quickly as we can. And that's why when Lisa Hominy expressed concern over November 1st, we had said that as soon as we can close on this property, we will move. And we had asked for, 30 days after closing that we would be gone from the property and remove everything. So we know it's within your discretion, and we believe we found another location. And so we're asking that we can have until November 1st, knowing that we will be very responsive to neighbor complaints. Now that summer is here, we know that we need to be careful what we're doing. So we ask that you give us this time to move, and we, of course, will be very responsive to anything that occurs at the property. And I want to thank the township attorney for her hard work. It's been a very difficult matter getting this consent judgment together. So I just wanted to thank her for making the pieces come together here. And I know it was hard work. So if you have any questions for me, I know Susan Armstrong is also on the call that she can also address if you have any questions. I don't know if she wants to talk to you separately, but I think I've expressed what she wants to express, and we really appreciate the time tonight.
Okay, well, it's fine if she doesn't have to necessarily address the board. I know you are representing her. I think the board will have some questions at this time. So if you're in a position to answer those questions, I will proceed. Mr. Powell?
Okay.
Mr. Powell?
All right, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a question for the owner or the representative. And I'm glad to hear that you may have found a piece of property. I guess I have a question. Lisa kind of hinted that November 1 date may be a long time out there, but I know that once you found a piece of property, it takes a while to close on that piece of property, but then also the closing of the property, because of what this board does all the time, and that's approving site plans, before another piece of property can be used in another community, you've got to go through site plan approval for all of that and getting all of that approved, and that can't be done in just 30 days. And then after you get all site plan approval, then you got construction drawing maybe that have to be done for any improvements that you're going to do to that piece. Then you're going to need time to move the equipment and all the supplies and materials to that new piece. So for you as the owner's rep, I'm wondering if you could tell me, is November 1 a realistic timeline for moving that entire business to another approved site?
This is Michelle Harrell.
So I'm happy.
again.
Would you want me to answer that,
Susan,
Michelle?
You can answer that. Oh, good, you're unmuted. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Susan.
Hi, this is Susan Armstrong, and first of all, I want to thank the board for your patience and your time tonight. We are, like Michelle said, we are really working diligently. We have been looking since last summer for a piece of property. Similar to the residential market, industrial market is nearly impossible to find something. And also one of the biggest concerns of the business, not only the neighbors, but the employees. I mean, we have over 20 employees. Most of my employees live locally. And when I approach them about this, you know, they're the heart and soul of the company. They're the most valuable asset of the company, and you just don't want to lose them. And so I had to take them into consideration when I looked. Believe it or not, there is no industrial property out there. We've looked everywhere. And finally, a piece of property did come up the last 2 or 3 months. We entered into an agreement. It took us about a month and a half to enter into agreement with the owner. It is industrial property. A site plan has already been approved for the location that would fit within our business. There is not going to be any construction needed within the first year. And luckily, our business, most of our business, as you know, is a lot of inventory with porta potties. Most of those out, given the construction industry, the demand in the construction industry, they're out. They're not even on our location, many of them. And so to move the equipment and our inventory shouldn't take us that long if we can do it, hopefully this summer. We are keeping our fingers crossed and being very optimistic that we will have the agreement finalized with the environmental due diligence completed and any of the permits that are needed, hopefully before the end of the summer. And I don't think it will take us that long to move our equipment and any of our inventory that we have still left on site. I believe November 1st is a good date, and if we can make it sooner, we will absolutely make it sooner. My trucks have to be inside in the wintertime because they carry water, and if they're not inside, they freeze up, and then I'm out of business. So I have to meet that deadline because the trucks have to be inside in a heated garage before winter hits, and it's usually by November 1st that we have that kind of drop dead date.
Okay, Susan, this is Supervisor Kowal. And
Hi.
that, how are you? Thank you for coming before us tonight. That is 167 days from now, I believe, if my number's correct. You think that's adequate for you to do what you need?
I do. I think actually the agreement's already been signed. The phase 1's been completed. We think the phase 2 will be completed very soon thereafter. There are environmental concerns, but there was a former BEA on the property. And I'm not sure if most of the council members know that that is really one of those baseline environmentals. So all prior environmental issues would not be something that, you know, would be something that I have to, I mean, they're waived once we do the BEA. And we have, I think, most of the other things in place. The property is 6 acres. It's paved. It's got buildings on it already. And the former owner was in a similar business that we were in. So it is sitting in a major industrial zoning. I don't think we have issues with, you know, a zoning. And I think, you know, I do believe we'll get this thing closed. I have to get it closed. I don't have a choice. Like I said, we have to have our trucks inside.
Okay.
So
And
it's
I
my
understand
full-time
that.
job to get this closed.
Yeah, no, it's a full-time job for you to get yourself relocated and back rolling down the road.
Exactly. And
I
I will tell you, I empathize with my neighbors and I empathize with you. This has been a long issue that you've dealt with for a long time. And I'm trying to resolve it as quickly as possible. I don't want to cause any more problems for the board or my neighbors. And I want to do what I can to make it as easy as possible to move this business as quickly as possible.
Well, that is greatly considered. Mr. Powell, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just now, and I thank you very much, Susan, for Ms. Armstrong for helping us out there. And being willing to understand the neighbors. I have a question of Mr. O'Neill. The consent agreement here, the consent judgment has a number of items in it that I'm not going to get too detailed on, but I guess I have a question. We are asking the business to leave the township. So we're going to end up with a vacant piece of property that has no immediate use. And at least the way it's stated in this consent agreement here, consent judgment, and that includes a building that'll now be empty, I'm assuming. So when it says here that it identifies that the business and it shall remove all equipment, supplies, and materials from that business, does that mean that our ordinance would not allow this particular business to have the office within that building as long as the associated unacceptable process is removed from the site?
The only part that has to be removed is the nuisance or the violation part of this business. And it doesn't necessarily have to be from the township. It has to be from this parcel that's not zoned appropriately, just to clarify. So to answer your question, they could still run an office on the 1 acre that's zoned local business, where the business was supposed to be contained for all these years. They could continue to run an office there, whether it's this business, it's office use, or an accounting firm, or any other of the uses that are allowed in the local business district. Certainly if there was a significant change in use, they'd have to go through at least an administrative site plan review and approval process that, we could put them through very quickly to make sure it met all the requirements of the ordinance. But to answer your question, yes, we're not saying they can't use the property anymore. They can use it only for uses that are consistent with what is allowed in local business zoning district.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I do appreciate the representative here giving us so much information and assuring us that they are really working hard towards this being successful. So it sounds like a long time, but it's just a little under 6 months, which with what they've explained they need to do sounds fairly reasonable. I'd appreciate putting the language in or sooner. So that's very helpful to us. And then Officer Hudson, I think, would have kind of also a tool in his belt when he gets these complaints that he's able to say that the township board has taken action and there is a date and there is movement on this, which I think would help, resolve the complaints with the neighbors if they knew that action has been taken and there's a firm date. So that would be my comments. That November sounds like a while, but it's just under, it's about 5-6 months.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Anyone else? That being said, Mr. Noble.
I would like to kind of piggyback what Liz said. We have employees that depend on their job, and by removing us out of that, it kind of gets us out of the litigation. And that's what I would like to move forward with, is kind of giving them that time until November to get squared away. She's absolutely right with the market the way it is, trying to find property, and then she has to get the governmental approvals, which can be quite cumbersome. So to Liz's point, I'm for that. And I don't want to disrupt anybody and lose their faith. That's their job. That Brendel's has been there for a long time, and it's unfortunate we're going to lose that business, but we also want the business owner to be a success without getting into legality of that. So I don't have a problem with giving them the time that was, that they were requested.
Okay. I have been listening to what all of my fellow board members have said, and I have sort of compiled a motion, and I would be willing to put that forward with Lisa's critique. Yes.
Did you want to talk to Jason about any issues going on at the property, or are you all just comfortable that the issues are going to be over November 1st, so you don't want to?
Well, I won't tell you that it isn't a sticky, stinky situation that potentially Jason Hudson deals with over there, as Jason and I have had more conversations about this than you can shake a stick at. And I believe that there is a certain amount of relief that knowing to the residents and the persons that are complaining. But in my slightly crafted motion here, I do address some of those matters.
Okay.
So that being said, if my board members, I see you nodding, Michael, with that, I'll take your blessing.
Please.
I would like to enter into this consent judgment, provided operations of the business are within compliance during the vacating process, the date not to exceed November 1st, 2021. Pretty straightforward. Yes, I knew you'd say something.
So you're moving to approve the consent judgment, inserting language in the blank space on paragraph 2. That specific language that you stated is different than what we talked about. So I just want to make sure, are you just saying November 1st? You're not putting the alternate language or 30 days after the date upon which the closing is held for the purchase or lease of the new location, whichever
Well,
date is sooner?
I forgot to add or sooner.
Or
Okay,
sooner, I think is important.
so
And
I would
by
like to
adding-
get, they're going through a situation here that's been a long time in the woods. And, you know, Susan is going through enough rigmarole right now. And I believe that if there's a drop deadline here and everybody knows it's part of it, Jason will have that tool in his box for the residents. We will also make sure that all of the problems are addressed during this process, of which Susan has mentioned to this board that she would comply. Her attorneys mentioned that she would comply, and it'll be part of this judgment. And if you would like to add something else.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I just have to put it in the consent judgment for filing with the court. So I want to make sure I understand the direction of the board so that you then authorize me to make the necessary revisions to the consent judgment to comport with your motion.
Exactly. I understand, Lisa. I understand that. But I think that kind of sums it up. I think where they can operate, they have to operate within confines of the compliance and not to disrupt the neighbors and such. And they have during the vacating process from now until November 1st, if not sooner. Pretty well sums it up. You're going to say something, so say something. I can see it in
So
your eyes.
she prefer the language to be 30 days after closing.
I don't
If it's
care.
sooner than November 1st.
Yeah, I don't care
That's
what the
fine.
language is,
Okay.
just so I'm clear on it. Is it the 30 days, within 30 days after closing on the property? Or just November 1st or sooner?
I'm not going to put that on her because I have moved businesses and I have done things and stuff comes up, and I am not going to have it. So she's in her 29th day and she's like out of her mind.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I am not going to put that in part of my proposal.
Good.
Okay.
To hopefully put Lisa at rest, I'm going to support that, and we can vote on it.
I have motion. I have support by Mr. Powell. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
And quick question.
Yes, Mr. Roman.
So the motion is to approve the consent judgment with the November 1st date, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Provided operations of the business are within compliance during the vacating process of
Yeah,
the date
yeah.
no later than November 1st, 2021, if not sooner.
On or before November, yep, 1st.
Okay. We have motion, we have support. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Thank you very much, board members. Susan, you can get on with your business with one less monkey on your back.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate all of your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick,
Okay.
can you send me that language that you read so quickly, so many times?
I shall do that.
I think Jennifer probably has it verbatim.
Got some video footage too on YouTube.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
I'll do whatever you would like, Lisa. Item 9I. All of you know that we have ventured into the wonderful world of WODA, which actually has been very successful. And we've been able to move a lot of different people around, and we're actually able to get, as you know, the city of Walled Lake to join, and we have a couple other communities that are looking. And we have been operating under the Urban Authority Act of 1967. And currently, according to our attorney for WODA, who happens to be Mark Croner from Foster Swift, it is his recommendation and the recommendation of a number of governmental agencies that we are dealing with.
Uh-oh.
Froze.
Hopefully that's just a picture and he didn't himself do that.
Concentrating.
Who's in charge now?
My
Clerk.
director, Kim Viner,
Clerk.
okay, is in charge of the grants. And there's a roughly $70 billion in infrastructure transportation money out there that is available. The difficulty with operating under the Urban Cooperation Act of 1967 is that we are classified as what is called a sub-recipient. So in other words, we have another layer of bureaucratic baloney that we have to go through most of the time that slows us down. By going to a authority under Act 196, we become a full-blown authority, which will allow us to become a direct recipient of federal monies and transportation funds, and we won't be a sub-recipient anymore. And if you read the letter that Mark drafted, it really spells it out quite clearly. There really are not a lot of changes other than the language as to some minor changes within the operation. And the only difference is, and I will make sure that people know that this is, as a 196 authority, and you are formed, you have the ability to levy potentially a millage. However, we have gone into this whole thing because we are trying to put ourselves in a good position with the potential RTA, which inevitably is going to come around again. It'll be in 22. And this will put us in a very good position for that, because we wouldn't be a sub-recipient of through a few different government entities. We would be able to petition directly for monies that we would be able to get back into our community that would be part of this. There are a lot of pieces, and it ultimately depends how the RTA is going to formulate its piece of legislation that it's ultimately going to get implemented and put into to a vote to the public. They'll craft it in such a manner. They are very good at what they do, the folks, and they will find a way. But this will put us in a position to help us to be able to go after further federal grants that we currently do not qualify for. Those grants are to enhance mobility, individuals and seniors. We have a variety of different funds that we will be able to tap into. It'll allow us to go to 5339 grants, which is a level of grants that we're just not allowed to do it right now because of the situation that we're in. This looks to have been a successful pilot program. 2 years will be in December. At the end of December will be our 2-year program. We are in the process right now of ordering 4 new buses that will help us expand, because our biggest problem right now is that we're becoming a victim of our success. So we have to be very careful at the rate of which we grow, but we're looking forward to doing that. And we're even going as far as potentially looking for a potential site, a relocation site for the dispatch and the vehicle yard. Most of the vehicles are placed out throughout the communities anyways, but when you need your windshield wipers done, or you need the tire changed or something, you have to have oil, you have to have a maintenance facility. But at any rate, I would hope all of you went through this information, and I was asked by Kim Viner, our director, that if we could move this along, because it has to not only be approved by our community, but it has to be approved by all of the other communities. And once it's approved, it would be adopted, and then we would file it with the state and then have that recognition. So I would love to have any questions from the board at this time. Mr. Roman.
Well, Rick, I don't know if you realized, but you froze up for about 30 seconds earlier on this.
Okay.
I didn't think you knew.
Okay.
So I just want to summarize for everyone, and you can correct me if I get this wrong, but we're currently running WODA under a 1967 Act that is really disallowing us to get grant money. By making this change to Act 196, it opens those doors to get funding and puts us in an eligible position as opposed to where we are now.
Correct. In a nutshell. Yep. That's it. So any other question? I'm sorry, I didn't know I froze up. Any other questions from the board? Okay. That being said, Andrew, whoop, did I see a hand? No? Okay. Andrew, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, let me pull the motion up on my phone. Absolutely.
We don't have a resolution.
To support the WODA agreement that help me with the verbiage.
Charter Township of White Lake resolution to approve amendment of the interlocal agreement regarding the Western Oakland Transportation Authority for formation of the Act 196 authority and to adopt articles incorporation.
Thank you very much.
That's your motion? Okay.
That's what I heard her say.
That was Andrea's motion. She needs support from someone.
I'll support it.
Andrea's motion is supported by Mr. Noble. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Supervisor Kowa,
Absolutely, unequivocally, yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Absolutely, yes.
Clerk Noble, yes.
Thank you all very much. I certainly appreciate it. This is a pet project of mine, and I think it's had some great results. I know Andrea and I have seen direct people that you can touch and talk to and see what an impact it's made in their life. I will tell you that with the recent passing of my mother-in-law, I will tell you that while my mother-in-law was wheelchair bound, this was a real relief to my wife to get her to the doctor, and the people in the bus were just absolutely outstanding, and they did not know who was riding because obviously it has a different last name, so there was no favoritism there or preferred service, and they were great and they were very compassionate, and these are the types of folks that we're trying to find. And also, just as a little advertisement out there, if you know somebody that's retired part-time and likes working with older folks, we'd love to have you. So give it some thought. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move that along. Okay. Lisa, you're going to have to help me out with the next one here a little bit, because you said it for the item for the reconsideration of the Partners on Patrol item, which would be item 9J, that we had to rescind the first action first. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and what was the total percentage of vote that would be needed to rescind to reconsider?
2/3.
Which out of 7 people? Do the math for me.
5.
5.
I wanted to hear you say that. So the first order of the day is to see if there's recension. If there's no recension, the matter is dead. Correct? And without any further comment necessary. If it comes up that it goes into a vote, then we can have some discussion. So I would like to make a motion to rescind the previous decision on the Partners on Patrol relationship with automotive. I will make that in the form of a motion, and I am looking for support to bring it to a vote. Okay.
I'll support it.
I have support from Mr. Noble. Mr. Roman.
You're saying we can't have discussion unless this goes through?
We can, but we don't have to, because we'll have to, because
I do want to discuss.
Here's my point. We're unwinding the knot, okay, or potentially unwinding the knot. And then in order to go forward, you're still going to have an opportunity to have discussion.
Mr.
Okay,
Roman,
thank-
keep in mind that you have trustee comments at the end. If there's
Yeah,
some,
no, I appreciate
I'm
that,
not,
Liz.
I'm not taking away your ability to say anything, and I welcome.
That's
it.
all,
I would-
that's all I'm asking. Whether we vote to rescind or not, I want to discuss.
I think we should discuss now.
Oh, that's fine.
I-
I have no objection. I was just trying to
Great.
expedite it to the next step.
we can discuss now. We have motion and support for discussion. We
I
can
know, I
discuss
realize
without
that.
voting.
I'm totally aware of that. Mr. Roman, go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, I'll go first. You know, I probably erred in voting to even add this to the agenda. I'm so dead set against this. And in hindsight, I probably should have voted no on adding it, but I like to give you all a chance to discuss. And that's why I voted to add it to the agenda. But look, you guys, I've met Tom Zott. I've spoken with him numerous times. I thank that whole family over there for everything they do for our community, because they do help us out really in so many ways. But I feel so strongly that a police patrol vehicle is just not the proper place to advertise private business, guys. You know, and that goes for Zott as well as all of the businesses in our township. Maybe this is extreme, but you know, when I look at the American flag, you know, I honor it. It's a symbol, and I look at our police vehicles in the same light. You know, to me, they symbolize the freedoms and securities and the safeties that we all enjoy in White Lake Township. And you know, we wouldn't put advertising on a flag, and for the same reason, I am so against putting advertising on our police patrol vehicles. You know, the second concern I have is if you let Zott do it, you better let them all do it. You got a ton of small businesses in this community. I already went next door to Highland Auto and Tire and talked to them. They would love to have a decal put on our police patrol cars in exchange for partnering, you know, and helping us in servicing our vehicles. Guys, it's never going to stop. Now, I know other communities are doing this, and, you know, that's fine, but that doesn't make it right. So, hey, if you're listening, thank you guys for your community service. Thank you for doing business in White Lake. I am just dead against the idea of using our patrol cars to advertise any private business. And that's the last you'll hear from me.
Mr. Noble.
So I brought this before everybody because I didn't give it due thought, and I respect everybody on the board. Sometimes we agree to disagree. And Scott, you're right, I am a retired police officer. And to Mike's point, I do take the American flag, and I fought for that for 26 years being a police officer. I did do some research outside, which my Treasurer Roman and I spoke about, and we have different opinion. After I dove into it, and I spoke with Milford's chief, who was given a $70,000 truck for $32,000. Now you can't get trucks right now; they're very expensive to get that. So they took a hit on it. The decal, what I initially thought, and I own the responsibility to not looking at it in detail. I thought it was going to be super big, and it's going to be under our White Lake Township emblem, but it's not. So it's very small, and it just says partnering with the community, kind of like how they support Lakeland High School. Another community I reached out to and did my homework, I spoke with Highland Township's chief of fire, at which time they had the same problem with the truck. They took a hit on the truck. They are losing money on that. So I don't think they're looking at, you know, I look at it like this, comparing apples. They're in the car business, so we're going to be taking it there. They're willing to give us the equivalent, I believe, my estimation, don't quote me on these numbers, right around $6,000 to $7,000. That was another thing I did not understand and I own that, look into. I totally agree with the American flag, but if it's somewhere on the car and we're getting that, and another thing I want you guys to realize, servicing these vehicles, the dealerships, if you go around, Supervisor Cole and I were at Suburban, you can't find employees to service, so it's backing them up. So it's going to put police cars down because they're short-staffed in all these dealerships. You can look at LaFontaine's, you can look at that. No, that's, you know, and I did the job. So initially yeah, I was against it, but now I'm looking at it and I'm looking at, they're not financially gaining on it. Actually, they're financially losing on it. And they're giving a community give back. Now, you'll find nobody on the board. I mean, I did the job. I know how hard it is. Also, I asked the chief of Milford, I said, do you get a lot of slack from people in the community? He said, absolutely not. He said, 80% of our roads are dirt. We needed that truck. He said, Anthony, we get more slack from the thin blue line flag that goes across there. The thin blue line, and you can research it yourself, is a 501c. Now, original intent wasn't to make money off that, but there are organizations now. I just met a lady in the parking lot when I left work several weeks back that I asked her, are you part of that? She goes, well, we sell thin blue line merchandise. Did they start that 501c? No, that's a separate business on police work. So they are profiting from that sticker being on all police cars. So I guess we could argue this back and forth, but I see the Zott family and I see Leo's and I see a lot of business. They can contribute to their potential. We take our golf outing, for example, our golf outing, we have so many different sponsors. Is somebody going to be able to put up $5,000? No. You take LaFontaine Motor, they gave $250,000 to their park for the amphitheater. I understand when's it start, but my position is to support this now. I support Zott Motor Company for stepping up. They're losing money on the deal, and that's my position. I respect the board's members on that, and I respect all the police officers. So I do respect your opinion, Treasurer Roman, and all the board members. And Scott, I respect yours too as well, and Andrea.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. So we're talking about a police vehicle. I'm a business owner in this town. I don't sell cars, but I donate. I live here. I work here. Why can't I have my name on it? Or any other business owner? And so we're giving Zott the ability to put his name on a vehicle because he happens to sell cars. Well, that's fine for him. He's also setting the price at what he'll pay for whatever size sticker. Why does he get to decide? And I don't believe, I ran the numbers too, and I don't believe it's anywhere near 6,000 to 7,000, but it could be $1. I don't care what the number is. There's no way his name should be on that car. And if it is on the car, why isn't my name on the car? And how big of a sticker can I have? And how much do I have to pay? And I guess since we're making up numbers as business owners, mine will be $10. And there's going to be a long line of business owners in this town that say the same thing as me. And there's no way they're losing money on the deal. We're paying almost $100,000 for those cars, right? We just approved the purchase. He's lucky to have the business because he didn't have it before. This is the first time we bought anything from him. So I'm going to have to, I'll be voting no on this. And that's just my take. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ruggles. Trustee Smith, please.
Thank you, Supervisor Cowell. I am so disappointed that this is even back to our board, the disrespect to our board to ask again after we had a solid and formal and complete vote. I'm just shocked that this is even back before our board. The air of impropriety stinks. And I don't want any part of it. I'm so incredibly disappointed that we have board members even entertaining this. Whose political pocket do we appear to be in? It is so wrong. Our police officers should remain as neutral as possible, representing our township and our township only. I couldn't agree more with Treasurer Roman and Trustee Ruggles. Where does it stop? This opens a Pandora box. How big, how much a resident has a misdealing with that dealership or another company in our community, and then a police officer that comes to their aid is covered in a different business. That's wrong. That's improper. I just can't even believe they kind of have the nerve to ask this. It's so wrong, and I'm so against it. I do appreciate their community support. We have fantastic community support from other businesses as well that I appreciate Zotts. It's not personal to Zotts, but this on our police officers is wrong. And I'm sorry, Anthony, but you kind of made it sound almost worse that it's about perks and about money. I would rather pay full price for this car and this car to appear neutral in our community than say, well, for the savings of $6,000, they get stickers on the entire fleet. So I'm adamantly against this. I'm adamantly against the reconsideration. I could go on, but I'm very firm no. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Andrea Voorhees.
Yes, I know I voted differently a week ago, but I have reconsidered my thoughts also. I want a police officer car, a cop car, a patrol car to come up. I want it to say White Lake Township. I don't want it to say, and with community support of a different community, a different company, or because like Scott has said, it's going to open a whole Pandora can of worms, however you want to look at it. We're going to have Leo's Coney Island, Leo's, every place, the donut shop. I want White Lake patrol cars to say White Lake on it. So yes, I'm going to be a hard no also.
Amen.
Very good. Okay.
The one thing one thing I just want to point out, before I came on this board, we have a Dodge Durango out there that Zotz gave our township leased. It's 1-year lease with stickers all over it, and it's got White Lake emblems on it. So I think moving forward, we know where the board stands, but in the past, maybe we shouldn't have taken that. So I respectfully say so. So that's just my position. I think we should have a policy moving forward on something like that. So it's established on fair grounds, you know, that we know moving forward. We have that
vehicle, I
truck.
don't believe came before our board. So our board didn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe
it's
that
out there.
vehicle, but it did
It's
not
out there.
come before this board. So our board did not have the choice in receiving that. That went through, I think it went through team, but Chief Keller can speak up if you'd like. He's on the line. So there's so many other appropriate ways for these wonderful businesses to support our community. They can support our parks, they can support our future amphitheater, civic center. That's appropriate, but this is so inappropriate.
Yeah, and to your point, I think moving forward, we should develop a policy. That way we don't run into that, because we each see that truck running around. I've seen it before I came on the board. So that was donated for a year's lease. It's got every sticker on there is a community partnership. So I don't disagree with you moving forward. We should develop a policy, to your point, and that way that we set the ground rules for everybody. But in the past, that's what I saw, and that's kind of how I changed my mind.
Yeah, it's not the fleet though, Anthony. So there's a difference.
It's part of the fleet. It's got White Lake PD on it.
It's not
Part of the
Not a
fleet.
patrol vehicle.
Right.
All right. All right. Order. Okay. Okay. Andrea, you had your hand up in an orderly fashion.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, that's exactly what I said. That's a foundation car. It's not a patrol car. It's a service car. I've seen it too, Anthony, but it's not used every day. That's
Okay.
all I have to say.
Are we done beating the horse? Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to have a motion to rescind. Make a motion to rescind. I'll make the motion, which I did. I think Anthony supported it, which he did. And now we'll go to a vote. Roll call vote.
Supervisor Kola,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith,
No.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
So this is a vote.
to not move it forward, Rick.
We have to rescind it, Mike, before we could possibly move it forward.
Okay, what was your motion again?
Motion to rescind.
Okay, so, and you voted yes, Rick, correct?
I voted
So
to
this would be
rescind. the
undoing what we
decision.
did a couple
Rescind
days
the
ago.
other one. I got you. Okay. So, and Liz, you voted no?
I voted no.
I'm a no.
Trustee Ruggles,
No.
Trustee Voorhees,
No.
Trustee
Motion.
Powell again. Did I get you, Trustee Powell?
You did. I was a yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion dies. Okay, thank you. Next item, going on to, we don't need to go into closed session because we remedied that matter. Correct?
Nobody removed it from the agenda, so maybe a motion removing it from the agenda so
I'll
it
make a
doesn't
motion
reflect
to
in the
remove the
minutes.
closed session as described on our agenda. Looking for support.
Or
I have support from Mr. Roman. Roll call vote, please, Mr. Noble.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Powell.
Yes.
Okay, trustee comments, Andrea Voorhees.
At our Parks and Rec meeting a week ago, we were able to purchase tables for Stanley Park. We had already purchased them. A resident called us and asked us to adjust our price amount because they were really expensive. So those should be coming in soon. And we were in, thank you to Justin and planning, we were able to find cheaper ones. Handicap, ADA compliant, and regular tables. We also had the first township cleanup unofficially of Stanley Park last Sunday or Saturday, excuse me. I haven't been able to get down there just because of personal reasons, but I'm sure it looks great. So I thank you to those people that were able to get down. June 5th is one of my favorite days in White Lake Township. It is the No Has Day. It will be in the Kohl's parking lot from 9 to 1. So let's make our community even greener by getting rid of some of our crazy stuff that we have in our garage that we've been able to clean out in the last year and a half. All the lists of things that we can take there is on our township website. And as always, I'm going to finish off with my comment of be safe, be healthy, and let's get vaccinated. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, the planning commission met on May 6th. We saw 2 cases, Stanford Holdings and Lake Point, the 2 that came before the township board tonight. Our meeting on May 20th has been canceled, so we'll meet again in June. Besides that, I don't really have anything to add.
Thank you. Mr. Noble.
I'd just like to take the time to point out 3 exceptional employees that have noticed handling, actually 4, one being Nick Spencer. He's got a lot of work out of him with the building season, and then Don Brotherton, Sherry, and then over at the water department, Kelly Lang and Deborah, who work very, very hard for the township. And they put in hours. I leave late sometimes, and I see a lot of these people. And Kristen over in assessing too, a couple of ladies, Jody, they work very late and they work hard. And I just like to acknowledge them. And I'd like to thank the board. I love the fact that we have difference of opinions, and it's we got a great board, and I'm proud to be on it.
Very good, Mr. Ruggles. I mean, Mr. Noble, I beg your pardon. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I just would like to reiterate as my library update that there will be a Pfizer COVID vaccine clinic at the library on May 26th and June 16th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Appointments are booked, but there will be available walk-ins on May 26th. So as of now, it's my understanding there's not available walk-ins on June 16th, but available walk-ins on May 26th, and that is Pfizer. And then we just celebrated and honored our Police Week here in Michigan's Police Week, excuse me, here in White Lake Township, May 9th through the 15th. And I just want to extend a tremendous thank you to our police department. They're absolutely outstanding. I hope that they felt loved and supported by our community. We are served by the best, and I just want to acknowledge them one more time on Police Week here. Thank you, be safe, and God bless.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Mr. Roman.
First, want to thank all the White Lake residents that are tuning in this evening. Thanks for staying in tune. Secondly, I'd like to thank Dawn Bockelman for all the work she put in researching fiber technology. It looks like that's coming to White Lake, and there's no one in the township more excited than I am. Finally, I want to say thank you to Amy Petru, who has been one of my front office staff for 2 years. Amy found a great opportunity out in the village of Fowlerville. She's going to be leaving us soon, and I want to wish Amy the best and thank her for everything she's done for the treasurer's office. In the last month and a half now, I've lost my deputy of 20 years, Amy of 2 years. Reva's the only one I have left that does passports. With all the training we're going to need to do, bringing my new deputy up to speed, as well as a new treasury specialist once we hire that person. We as a treasury staff have decided to suspend taking passport applications at least through the end of tax season. We'll revisit it then. We've been taking passport applications for years. We wanted to limit that to White Lake residents. The passport agency will not let us do that. So many of the passport apps that we do for non-residents. And just a message for those listening, the Highland Post Office is the best place to go for passport applications. So that's all I had, Rick.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Powell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I want to kind of piggyback on what Trustee Smith said. Had the opportunity to really sit down and maybe understand our police department a little bit more, but I wanted to reach out and let them know how much we board members appreciate our police. The reports this month, the fire department unfortunately appeared that they didn't have some of the documentation that I normally go through from the fire department, but the police department in 1 month had 2,155 service calls call in. That is an incredible number in 30 days. That being said, they had 886 dispatches in 30 days. So they are extremely busy department. I also wanted to, one of the things I always look at as well is that our police department is fair and open-minded when they stop people. And I wanted to point out that every month it appears that they do an excellent job between balancing traffic warnings and traffic tickets. And I have, it's very strange for me to say that I've never been stopped by one of our police officers, but if I did, I'd certainly want them to be objective and fair with me like everyone else. So I just wanted to say hey to all our police out there. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Well, everyone, we're going to see what the mask is all about here shortly. Unfortunately, White Lake is bound by MIOSHA regulations, and therefore we are still required to wear those masks within the public areas of our building and when we're within less than 6 feet of individuals that may not be inoculated. But I believe by the end of the week, there'll be some further action by MIOSHA that will mimic several of the other orders that are coming out there right now. So we'll see. I would like to say thank you very much to Mr. O'Neill and Justin. They have helped me wrangle another grant, and we were awarded it. And I'm not going to disclose it because I can't, because that's part of the agreement with the grant. But it's got a lot of zeros behind it, and it's a good thing. So I am the grant hound of grant hounds, and I will continue to be so. And I don't have any problem. And that's why I also thank the board and their support of WODA. Again, the difference that we are making, I had a conversation with another community, and which will go nameless. And I was a little disheartened because, you know, all I got was costs. And everything has a cost. Humanity has a cost. White Lake Township and its board has decided to invest in humanity and therefore provide a service to our community that is deeply needed. And with the thought process that I have and the board has been able to understand as how it's come together, we are hopefully putting ourselves in a very good protected position against the RTA, as well as having an opportunity with strength in numbers. We do have potentially 2 other communities that I won't discuss right now that are potentially looking at joining. And we're also planted a seed for another organization in the southern part of Oakland County because they see what not NODA has done up north, what WODA has done here in the west, and now what could be going on in South Oakland County, and they're going to call it SODA. Okay, so that'll be easy to remember. But that is something. So by the actions that this board has taken and the communities around us have taken, it has heightened the awareness and is now providing a service to folks who wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity. The recent SEMCOG data never ceases to amaze me. It comes out there. It'll tell you everything. It'll tell you how many frogs are in a pond at the lake. And Mike, you know what I'm talking about. They got everything. And we have a tremendous amount of people in this community that don't even own a car. And the number is somewhere in the almost like 8 or 9% of the residents here that live here that are of adult age do not own a vehicle. So it is very important to have this. So that being said, the other thing that we've got coming down the pipe is a community sharing. For those of you who are familiar with it, that's the open door of our western end, so to speak. Two different organizations, but they do the same type of thing. They help folks out, and they are going to be building a new building on a piece of land that Rick Hamill was able to discuss with his board, and I did a presentation at their board to support them in that action. And they have donated a piece of land of which a building is going to be constructed now close to the Highland Township Library, and that will be the permanent home. That'll be about an $800,000 venture, and we are going to be raising funds and awareness for this. And so anyone out there that would like to donate, we would love to see it. Anything, large or small, $2 or 2 million, whatever, we'll take it. So this is something that's going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives within our community also, because there is a large number of White Lake Township residents that use that service. So with that, I say, we're all lucky, we're here. Michael, you have my best, and I say good night, God bless, and I make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
I believe that was Trustee Smith. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Treasurer Roman,
Yes, and good night all.
Clerk Noble, yes, and good night. Trustee Voorhees. Trustee Voorhees,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
and Trustee Powell.
Yes, and good night, and everyone tell those that you love them.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
Amen. Good night.
Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.